Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, it seems like you have a number of objections to what I've said, so I want you
I
to,
do, and I want to
yeah.
forewarn you. I was not anticipating this, so I am
I don't
just
care. You.
massively, massively intoxicated at the moment. So I will try my
Why does
best.
it? Okay, hold on. If you're in, so why every time I like confront someone who like
Yeah.
makes this accusation that I don't know what I'm talking about or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, put your money where your mouth
Actually,
is and prove
actually,
it.
by the way, if I may, you surprised me a little bit. You said some crazy stuff. I can't for the life of me recall what it was, but you were making weird leaps that indicate that you are not actually that stupid. You've read stuff, and that's interesting to see.
Well, I
Sorry,
know
what were you
I've
saying?
read stuff, dude, but
I know you know you've read stuff, but
yeah.
I didn't know you've
So
read stuff. So that
okay,
was
but so why can't I ever talk to someone who will soberly, meaning they don't have an excuse, actually like prove why the way I'm unfairly maligned on the internet is like a guy who knows nothing at all is somehow justifiable because of your radically bad faith interpretations of the things I say on stream. Like, what is it exactly that I've
well.
said?
I don't think my interpretations of what you said on stream are bad faith. But I will give you this. I will offer you this, however. If you would like to prepare a discussion on whatever it is we're talking
No,
about
why
here,
don't you
because
just
I'm hours
confront
behind
me?
you,
Okay, why don't you just
I
confront
would
me?
I would be very
Hold
happy
on,
to accommodate
why don't
that.
you just confront me with what you think I'm so wrong about?
Because I'm 2 hours behind you and I don't know what you're responding to, and I don't know what I would be drawing upon specifically
Okay, well,
to
to be
reply to you
clear,
with.
I'm
Hmm.
providing an introduction and I'm trying to really simplify a lot of the things that are
Yeah,
necessary to understand to read my MAGA communism Substack because
sure.
that Substack is drawing from a lot of ideas for a beginner. They're not really understanding where I'm coming from, so that's really what I'm
Okay.
trying to develop.
By they you mean your general audience.
My no, well, I actually think that I have made novel contributions to political theory, however minor or insignificant.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to die on that hill. I have made novel contributions to political theory,
Well,
unless.
I haven't gone through yet, so I'm quite certain I don't know if you have or you have not. There are
So
some things
what
that
have I
you.
gotten wrong so far? By the way,
What have you gotten wrong so far? Well, once
yeah.
again, like I said, I'm approaching this live. I'm listening to it passively. There are some things that I would probably be able to, on review, identify. But as of right this moment, I do not have
Wait, so you
the
can't even name a
clairvoyance to
single
bring it up.
thing? You can't name a single thing I was wrong about?
No, this is an off the cuff live stream,
But
and I am very
aren't I
very
like a
intoxicated.
massive dumbass? Like, shouldn't that be easy to name one thing?
Well, I don't think you're a massive dumbass. I think you're a sellout. There's a difference.
Yeah,
In the
but you're
same
kind
way
of
as Chud
writing.
Logic, which is sad because I think you actually
But if
had
I'm not a
passion and
massive
drive early on.
dumbass, why is that my reputation? Like, according to everyone, like on Twitter and
That's not
everything.
my that's not my that's not my opinion of
But
you.
you
I think you're cynical. I don't think you're a massive
but you
dumbass.
actively contribute to the impression people have of me that I have nothing of any significance to say because either everything I'm saying is meaningless or it's just
Well,
stupid.
off the top of my head, I think that is the case, but I think that's a matter of your choice. I don't think that's because you don't have the capacity to actually make an actual positive contribution to the world. I think
I
you've
didn't say a
found.
positive contribution. I said I have nothing to say that should provoke any thoughts from anyone, for example. Like, I don't have any thoughts
Have I
to,
said so?
I don't have any ideas to bring to the table that are ideas that are worth consideration or at least thinking about it. However, even if you want to do it from a hostile perspective, I mean, like, even if you want to do it from the perspective, like, okay, this guy's bad, his ideas would lead to bad or undesirable outcomes from a moral perspective, or they're ideologically wrong, right? Or ideologically scary, right? But when people just say I have nothing, that I'm just a nosball, I have no like unique worldview, and it's not a worldview that's been thought out before, and it's not coming from a place of having
I,
at
I'm going to
least
be I'm
an
going to
above
be
average
extremely I'm going
acquaintance.
to be extremely
Yeah.
reductive just for the sake of clarity because if I get lost in the weeds I'm going to lose the plot very easily right now. But my general impression of you is not that you are stupid. My general impression of you is that you found yourself into a corner where a lot of people have, people like Chud Logic for etc. And by the way, I actually appreciated. I mean, unfortunately, it was coming from you given your recent history, but I appreciated you holding his feet to the fire for him selling himself as a what was it, a Mark Fisher socialist, and then changing like that as soon as he saw an easy buck. Um, but I think generally, um, what you are is someone who probably had at some point early on, um, some real convictions, or at the very least, you felt a real sense of belonging with in a certain political sphere, and you realize, like so many people do, that if you didn't shill for a particular set of positions, or if you didn't exaggerate yourself into a cartoon character, that you would have, um, you wouldn't be able to sell yourself. And I think that your attempt to do so has sort of consumed you. I'm not in a position to substantiate that right now. I haven't spent a considerable amount of time thinking about you. But that's generally my impression of what's happened with
All
respect
right,
to,
you
to
can
you. I
you
don't think
can
you're
you can
stupid at
you can
all.
say that I sold out, and I can get to that in a second. But don't you think it's kind of weird how just because you disagree with someone, for example, on their position on the Ukraine conflict, that suddenly maligns every other attribute and aspect of their character? Like you disagree with this person on this one issue, the Russia Ukraine conflict.
Once
All of
again,
us,
once again, I'm not in,
yeah.
I'm not in a position to hash out the particulars of that. I'd be happy to do that
No, no,
given
you
like a
don't. You
certain
don't
length of
have
time.
to hash out the
But
particulars,
yeah,
but
just hang on, bear with me for one
yeah.
second.
But the truth is,
But
yeah, you don't have to
but
hash out.
if here's the rub though, okay?
Okay, go
So
ahead.
if someone determines that you're being cynical on this one point, okay, and that's generally the perception. It's not that you're stupid, but that you're cynical. If someone has determined, I'm not saying that that's been adequately justified or not. If someone has determined that you're cynical on this one point, then it stands to reason that you would be willing to be cynical and dishonest on another point. And so your right to charity at that point drops a little bit. And I think
Well,
that's what's happened.
but hold on. The problem is
Yeah.
not cynicism according to the actual reputation that has defined me, you know, in the streamer community and on Twitter or wherever you else want to go. The impression is that like, I'm just a complete dumb fuck who doesn't have any interesting ideas or anything interesting to say. And, I'm not well read on anything. I'm not educated. I'm just like a dumb guy who yells and that's it. Right? That's pretty much.
No, I think that's a bit of a character that you play, and I think it takes a certain level of intelligence to do that deliberately.
Yeah, but
However, I think there is a certain
I see. It's not. The problem, President
go on.
Sunday, is that I know this more
Sure.
than anyone because
Just
my
just
goal.
Sunday, by the way. You don't need to go with the whole
Yeah,
President
sure.
Sunday thing.
My goal isn't actually to be perceived in a good way necessarily. It's just that I want the things that I say to be judged based on what is actually being said, rather than like being so radically misinterpreted. Such like a horrible lens of bad faith. Like I could say something and then Hakeem can say the same thing and he'll get praised as like a genius. Oh, that's so interesting, Hakeem. I want to write like a 5,000 page, book on what you
Does
just said.
uh does an example spring to mind? Do you have something in particular that you're thinking of when you say that?
Yeah, all the time, actually.
But like do you have something like just for the sake of clarity? Do you have like a particular? I'm not. If you don't, that's fine. That doesn't mean it's not true. I'm just curious.
I just, if you take a given Hakeem video, which is trying to like run down, I guess, capitalist realism by Mark Fisher or some shit, everyone think that's so radical and that's so profound. But if I do a video engaging in an actual novel um reconciliation between Alexander Dugin and Zizek's ideas in a way that I don't really think anyone's ever thought about before, or at least expressed that thought. Like what? I That's just nothing,
Well,
right?
I would be interested to see what video you have in mind in particular, but I will say this: Alexander Dugin is not renowned as a critical thinker. He is a strong methodological nationalist, and I have a number of problems with him, which I would like to um,
Okay,
elaborate
but
on with preparation later on. Um,
okay, but Dugan.
it's an unusual. How do I want to put this? Dugan and Zizek are antithetical in the sense that Zizek is somebody who is invested in breaking down the reasons for the presumptions that govern how we conceive the world, whereas Dugan is highly reductionistic and essentialist and tries to characterize these vastly problematic and complicated political entities as if they could be simply summarized by reference to something like national character or something like that. That's very off the cuff.
No,
It's
Dugin
gonna be,
has a
yeah.
very rigorous, an extremely rigorous and consistent philosophy, and he doesn't play in such vague.
Consistency and rigor are not the same thing. Sometimes you can achieve a high level of
They're both,
consistency
but they're
by
both.
shooing rigor.
Because, for example, Dugin can tell you what he means by national character. If you read his book, Ethnos and
Yes,
Society.
but if somebody who knows better does not find that justification sufficient, then that's where
you're judging Dugin from an ideologically loaded perspective, as if his goal.
I know, kind of the opposite, actually. I'm kind of judging Dugin from the perspective of somebody who spends a lot of time concerned with material that is specifically concerned with criticizing the presumptions with which Dugin must on board in order to make the claims that he does.
You're completely wrong, though. If you're saying Dugin's not a critical philosopher,
look. Once again,
why do you have to keep cutting me off? Are you scared?
Oh no, I'm cutting off for a particular reason though. Just bear with me. I'm not okay. Attacking you. Where I was going is, I am perfectly happy to have a critical discussion about Dugin, etc. But I am very particular about approaching serious topics like this with preparation under the clearest circumstances possible. I would be happy to schedule something in a couple of weeks wherein we can
why
prepare
did you say all
and we can
those
discuss
things
this.
If you're not prepared for any scrutiny?
Because you asked me and I was obliging you.
No, I didn't.
This is not my definitive statement.
I didn't ask you your opinion on Dugin. You said a bunch of baseless things about.
What did you ask me? I can't quite recall.
I told you, why is it justified if you disagree with someone on a specific political issue? Why is it then justified to completely malign all other aspects of their character? I mean, isn't that kind of like, look?
It depends. If you're carrying water for a regime that's killing a lot of innocent people, at that point, like your character is kind of a wash, right?
First of all, we can get into that in a second, right? I'm happy to get into that. But
I'm not, by the way. I would like to approach a serious issue like that with preparation, under conditions of sobriety.
So you don't need preparation to like condemn someone, but you need preparation to justify.
Have I condemned you?
Yes.
How so?
You've condemned me as a sellout.
I think you're a sellout, yes. But once again, you caught me unprepared.
Also actively contributed to the maligning of my reputation, right?
I think you've done so sufficiently by yourself. I don't think you've needed any help from me.
Believe it or not, Sunday, how people have come to judge me is not based on anything self-evident. It's based on a specific and very meticulous campaign to depict me in a certain way.
Because I think what I've seen, with all due respect, is I've seen a short, angry man yelling at people in public in defense of a regime that has bombed schools and hospitals.
Sure. Let's begin with that. Like the whole short, angry man yelling at people in public. So, first of all, I don't even know where this impression came from that like. Who really? I mean, I've always joked about my relatively short height. I don't
think your shortness matters. I think when you're defending a regime that has resulted in parents losing their children.
No, you don't. What do you mean, dude?
That has resulted in parents losing their children. Your shortness is funny and should be made fun of.
Okay, but why do you make it seem like? But that only works. It only works to make fun of a guy who's 5'8" if he's bothered by it. But I'm not bothered by it. Like.
We're talking about it. You seem a little bothered by it.
Hold on, Sunday. I'm talking about
it. See, if you talk about me being bald, for example, I would move on from it immediately.
Sunday,
I find it funny myself.
Sunday, we can get into other things too, but it's the first thing you mentioned, right? If I ask you Sunday, what is the negative thing about me? You just gave it to me. So it's like you could have said anything else, but as long as you latch onto it as like a significant, as long as that's
if you were asking me for the negative thing about you,
okay,
I would go way back to when you tried to distinguish yourself by shouting into your microphone until it peaked to the point where you couldn't even be audible.
No, you know
anymore.
what? I think
And I think you did so as a novelty, and I think that was smart. But the problem is,
yeah,
that you were a bit of a one-trick pony, and that's all you had at the end of the day.
Sunday, let's actually do that. I prefer to focus on the yelling then. Okay. Everyone likes to focus on my yelling, but nobody wants to evaluate the causes. When have I ever yelled? Really? Maybe there's I've been streaming every day for like 2 years, so I'm sure you can find 1 or 2 exceptions.
You're asking the wrong guy. I haven't paid that much attention to you.
Okay. All of the famous cases of me yelling were justified. For example...
Perspective philosophy? Sure, I'll grant that one.
Okay.
That's all I've seen.
I don't think I yelled that hard with perspective philosophy. I don't remember. But...
I remember you literally were inaudible at one point because your microphone peaked.
Okay.
Regardless. It was funny, actually.
In almost every case, famous case of me yelling, like Socialism Done Left or Vosh, sure, it is always preceded by an extreme level of disrespect coming from them. I have never actually disrespected, let alone like screamed at someone, or I don't really scream, yelled at someone loudly, if it wasn't preceded by a level of disrespect toward my humanity. If I'm trying to have a human conversation with you in good faith, and you immediately start making assumptions about my level of intelligence just because of the way I talk or the way I look, and you're starting to dismiss me and disrespect me and call me names and start cutting me off, why should I tolerate that? Why shouldn't I just fucking, of course I'm going to get angry. Of course it will anger me. Why wouldn't it, right? I'm not a fake person. I'm actually
I have no answer for you, and I wouldn't tolerate that myself. However, once again, you find yourself in a situation where you were approaching strangers on the basis of, off the top of my head, minimal evidence, in defense of a regime that has caused a lot of innocent people to lose family members.
Okay, let's assume I'm so radically immoral because of Russia, which is something you don't want to talk about, so let's not talk about, right? The fact of the matter, Sunday, is that
you saw the bodies of children, and you rated that beneath the success of your channel.
Okay, but you don't want to talk about it. So
of your ideological position.
Sunday, if you want to talk about it, talk about it. If you don't. Okay.
I'll talk about it with 2 weeks' notice.
Okay, so
as
talk
of right
about
now,
it in 2
we'll
weeks'
leave that.
We'll
leave that aside for now.
Fair enough.
Fair
don't say things
enough.
that you're not prepared to defend, right? If you don't want pushback. Anyway, I'm just for the sake of argument going to assume. Like, let's just for the sake of argument.
Well, I am a little bit curious. How many bodies would be too much before you would turn on Putin?
So, do you want to go down this road of Russia?
I just want a numerical answer.
I reject the claim that Russia bears the responsibility.
Russia trespassed on the borders of Ukraine. Ukraine did not trespass on the borders of Russia.
The fact of the matter is that Russia had a legitimate...
That is the fact of the matter.
No, the fact of the matter is that Russia...
That is the fact of the matter. Russia was not in Russia when those deaths accrued.
Again, I'm going to repeat this. Russia has a legitimate interest in defending its own national security.
It has a legitimate interest. It does not have a legitimate claim. These are distinct. Every country has an interest in every country's territory.
Russia doesn't need a legitimate claim to Ukraine.
It doesn't need a legitimate claim in your judgment to destroy the lives of thousands and thousands of innocent people.
Did Britain have a legitimate claim to Germany? They didn't need one. They were just defending themselves against an aggressive power, weren't they?
Yes, but the difference is that Germany was rolling tanks over the borders of other countries. Ukraine was not. That's what Russia was doing.
Well, if you focus only on Ukraine and Russia, even then it's not true, right? But if you don't have the broader perspective of NATO, you can't...
I suppose the Germans did have recourse to the international cabal of Jewry.
I'm not sure why you're bringing that up, as if it's relevant. Why are you bringing that up? Like, what?
It's an analogy, Haas.
No,
give me 2 weeks, we can talk about it.
Hold on. Sunday, it's not an analogy, because if you don't take into...
It's directly an analogy.
Sunday, NATO is an organization which was created to fight and invade Russia, and actually genocide the Russian people in Operation Unthinkable, if you've never heard of that, okay? So this is the founding casus belli of NATO as an organization.
Look, I don't need to be a NATO simp to condemn a criminal gang leader for rolling tanks into civilian centers and bombing hospitals and schools. You have to let me speak and not cut
me off. If you want...
I don't.
So, is your position an irrational one?
Yeah.
So, again, you're just...
I have an irrational I have an irrational rage that I cannot quell for when
Right.
somebody
Well,
carries water for people they do not understand because it gives them
even as
an
as
easy
a
buck who
how
are
can you be a
killing
so-called progressive?
children.
Okay,
I have no I
Sunday,
just explode.
Sunday. If you're going to create a barrier to rational discourse, doesn't that kind of invalidate your claims to being like a progressive, enlightened thinker? Your thinking is not based.
You were thinking of the wrong kind of progressive, my friend.
Okay. Well, what's the problem with me yelling out? I mean, you're not even willing to have a rational disagreement over something. You can't even hear.
I am entirely, and in
Oh,
fact what I've said
let me
repeatedly,
impose upon you a
what I
okay,
have said quite
Sunday. Let
repeatedly,
me impose upon you
what
a
I've said quite
Cartesian dot.
repeatedly is that I would be happy to have an
Sunday,
extended discussion
sure,
with
sure.
preparation
Sunday,
at some point in the future
Sunday,
at your
Sunday,
convenience.
Sunday.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, how can you know that your position is even correct if you foreclosed yourself to hearing the other side?
I do not. I have foreclosed myself to hearing the other side on whether or not the pride of Russia is worth
Again,
the
no one has said
grinding
anything.
of thousands of children
No
into
one said
hamburger.
anything. No one said anything about the pride of Russia. And I'm pretty sure, Sunday, that you've expressed absolutely zero indignation over the children in the Donbass who've been getting slaughtered since 2014. You never gave a fuck
It's
about
a
them.
damn shame that
You
Russia
never
fomented
gave
a
a fuck
civil
about
war
them.
and used the Donbass as a human shield.
They didn't. They did it because the people in the Donbass didn't want to submit to the fucking junta
Then
government
why
in
is it
Kiev.
a civil war? Clearly there was not unanimity about
Because
that.
it's a civil war between the people in the Donbass who speak Russian and the Ukrainians in the West, for the most part. That's what it
Well, clearly
is.
not, because the Ukrainians are also in the Donbass. That's why it's a civil war. It's
The
not just the
Ukrainian
Donbass.
military has moved into the Donbass. Yes, they have. It's literally a civil war because the Russian speakers are fighting the Ukrainians for
It's
the most
literally
part.
a civil war because Russia invaded Crimea and then Ukraine. That's it.
No, Ukraine
Yeah.
suspended any claims to territorial sovereignty when it had an illegitimate coup in the eyes of the people in Donbass and in the people of Crimea. And the people of Crimea are the ones who chose to join Russia.
Well, that's a little bit strange because why did Russia need tanks then?
Maybe to defend from the
To
rapidly
to to
aggressive.
to to defend from the retaliation to their crossing the borders with tanks? Yeah, I expect they did.
So why did you ask if they had tanks then? Of course, it was to protect against the Ukrainian military. But why did
Well,
you
no,
ask if they
no,
had
no.
tanks?
I asked why they had tanks because the tanks went into
Because
action
the
when they
Ukrainian
crossed
government
the
because the Ukrainian
border.
government will not respect the will of the people of Crimea. Obviously, they didn't, and they actually didn't
You
respect it.
think if the Russians were respecting the will of the people of Crimea, they wouldn't have had to invade. That would have been
Actually,
something that
yes,
the
because the
Crimea
Ukrainian
would have
government
engaged by
considered the
themselves.
vote to be illegal. They wouldn't have held that
What?
vote. You think if Russia didn't have tanks, that vote would have been allowed to happen? It wouldn't have. The
I
Ukrainian
have no idea
government
what
would
you're
have never
talking about.
allowed it.
I have no idea. Let's move back to talking about like why people are not
Okay.
being nice
Well,
to
this is
you.
a perfect example, dude. You're just not open to the possibility you might be wrong about me, and that's the problem.
I'm perfectly open to it. In fact, I've said I will allow. Let's set something up 2 weeks from now.
Okay. So don't
Let's spend
then
a
don't
solid two
okay, then
weeks
don't okay.
pinning down like a
No, no,
solid thesis and let's do it.
okay, sure, let's do that. And then for right now, for sakes of right now, let's just assume you're right that I'm so immoral for supporting Russia. But that doesn't give you a right to lie about me.
I don't care. I don't care. I
You
haven't
don't
lied
have
about
the
you.
right
I
to
don't
lie
care.
about someone.
I
And when I
I
say
haven't lied about
when
you.
I say
Wait, hang on. What lies have I told about you? What are you referring to?
you've obviously contributed to the impression that I have nothing
Well,
politically
let's produce an example. Let's see.
just you've I've seen you dogpile on Twitter and get on board talking all that shit, basically focusing. I mean, the thing is, Sunday, even you have to admit that I have not earned my reputation. Crucify me for my position on Russia and stick with that.
I don't have to admit anything.
You do, because
I think your position on Russia and your situation vis-a-vis your position on Russia, I there is no needfulness whatsoever for you to take your position on Russia. You are doing so because it benefits your channel. I think
okay,
that
you can
condemns you
claim that.
sufficiently enough by itself.
You can
When we
claim
look at
that.
the other things, like for
Okay,
example, how you've decided to try and align yourself as softly as possible with the radical right and target already embattled groups, once
okay.
again for the sake of aggrandizing yourself. I mean, like we can just go down the list as long as we
We
want.
can, but you're not willing to because you said you need 2 weeks
Not without
preparation.
preparation. I do indeed. That's my policy with everybody. We could be talking about I don't know. We could be talking about road work, or we could be talking about what's that word? Agglomeration or whatever.
Okay. Well, okay, all of my
It's
sins are
just how I do. Sunday needs
so
preparation.
conveniently, you can't really justify all of these accusations against me. You just kind of
Ah, but I can with 2 weeks.
okay, you can do it in 2 weeks, but in the
I can
here
do it
and
in two
now,
weeks,
but you see,
damnably.
but you see
The
fit.
the Jarl will crush the Khan beneath his heel.
Okay, sure, but you see fit to draw these conclusions and make these statements before the 2 weeks have
Yes,
passed.
I do.
So I guess you're just in debt then to see if what you're saying can actually be paid off and anything.
I suppose so.
Yeah,
We will have to see.
yeah, but again, I gave you an opportunity.
Infrared's chat. You should
Okay.
you
Well,
should you should you
Sunday.
should you should get to work and help him
Okay.
out.
So Sunday, I gave you a chance to point out a single thing I said was wrong. Your title is obviously very satirical, um, but I don't know.
No, my title was completely serious.
Okay.
I think you're the genius voice of a generation, Haas.
Okay. Why do I have to have a specific reputation? Why can't you just like specifically deal with the content of what I say? Why does it have to be I'm either a genius or I'm either a dumbass? Why can't you just actually respond to what I actually just say?
I think you're a above average intelligence
I don't care.
person who
Again, I
is
don't.
filling
Again,
out and making themselves stupid as a marketing ploy.
I don't think I'm making myself stupid. I think for you to say
I
like,
don't think you believe a single word you say. I think you are saying exactly what you need to navigate the conversation at hand.
do you know why that's so dangerous to claim? Because when you've suspended the ability to ground any position or any form of thinking or any belief in some kind of like something that could be subjected to any kind of rational scrutiny, like when I have a position that is extremely consistent and obeys some kind of intelligible method that can be communicated, it is grounded in a rationally consistent worldview of some kind. It's not actually a mystery of any kind. I'm not. It's not some like secret. I can communicate my position very clearly, right?
I
And
couldn't understand a word you just said. Can you restate that?
yeah, very funny. But I can
No, no,
formally.
I'm serious. I
For,
actually,
Have
okay,
you
another
lost me
drink,
halfway through
pal.
there.
You need it.
so with formal rigor, I can communicate my position. So you don't need to say I'm motivated by anything else when at least what I'm putting out there obeys some kind of internal logic. When you tell someone that I'm going to dismiss everything you say as the result of some kind of disingenuous or inauthentic, insincere level of belief, you're basically foreclosing the ability for human beings that disagree with each other to communicate. You're making it impossible for communication to happen because you're basically telling the other person, it doesn't matter what you say, this is the
I've
truth about
actually
you.
insisted multiple times in this conversation that we should have a moderated conversation with preparation,
Based.
specifically to the
Typical
end of
Bashite,
either
completely
facilitating
unable to
communication as clearly
engage
as
with the
possible,
ideas of their
or for
adversaries
demonstrating
at
who is at
hand.
fault for making that
Soing.
impossible.
Yeah, I had a donation. You said you're willing to have a debate in 2 weeks. That's fine, but you chose to do this stream today covering my stuff. And I've given you the opportunity to actually confront me with what you find objectionable or wrong.
Oh, when I confront people with preparation on my own time. Me answering your call is a
Why
courtesy.
didn't you need preparation to respond to my stream then?
Uh, why didn't I need preparation? Because it hadn't happened yet. I'm watching it in semi real time. I'm an hour behind you, but I'm
So
watching it as it goes.
how were you going to prepare during the stream itself? Did you prepare beforehand?
Was I going to prepare for what precisely? I'm literally just watching you write
For
this thing
for
out.
watching and responding to my stream.
But it's live now.
I was.
The stream's
Am I
live
wrong?
now.
Because
It's the
I've been
stream's not
told.
done.
Sure, I've been told you've been watching it for like I don't know a decent amount of time,
My
and
stream's been active for about 2 hours. I've paused a few times, but your stream has been going. Let me look here.
for four
Actually, a little bit.
hours. So
4 hours, yeah. So I'm about 2 hours behind you. So,
okay, that's
yeah,
still a lot.
I haven't seen your whole stream yet.
So
There's nothing to prepare for.
let's
This
just
is
say you've at least
cutting edge.
watched an hour of my content, right?
Sure.
Okay, well, I've been told that you have a number of objections to some of the things I've said, and I just am curious about what that is.
I can't recall.
So
Been a
you
bit of a
didn't
blur.
actually, so you've watched an hour so far and you have no objections.
I had objections as you went through it. I could not encyclopedically recall them off the top of my head. I can go back and we can talk about this in 2 weeks from now.
That's fascinating. You're drunk and there's no, okay, I mean,
Yeah.
by the way, I've noticed it's a real pattern where
Hmm.
particularly leftist opponents will get in VC and say, I just want to preface this by saying I'm drunk. Uh, can you explain why
I
everyone
am
always
very
has to be
drunk.
drunk?
Well, when you're sitting on your ass for 8 hours a day reading books and streaming, and you have like a natural anxiety about being in front of an audience with a few hundred people, you drink sometimes. It really is that simple.
Right. I honestly,
Drinking makes you feel a
see,
bit better
Sunday, I'm
sometimes.
not actually looking for you or any other leftist to agree with me because I vehemently disagree with these people. What I'm actually
Oh.
looking for is for you to correctly disagree with me, which means disagree with me based on what I say.
Well, disagreeing with you based on what you say will require me to take time actually going through, reviewing what you say, and ascertaining what you say first. That would be
So you're not
that would be
even
the
you're
good
not
faith
even are you
approach.
even
I'm
prepared for
actually
like
willing to give you the benefit of the doubt and take you completely seriously and spend time actually combing through
okay,
what you've said and
are
judging
you
it
even
on its own
prepared?
merits.
So given I have I'm such a bad person with a horrible reputation, this is my point, okay?
Mm.
You can have your own gripe with me about the Russia Ukraine conflict. We're not going to get into it. You can have that gripe. That doesn't justify the way in which I am lied about really consistently. Like as far as
If
what,
you if you were if you were lied about, then that is unjustified definitionally. It is a lie. If if
right,
now if
but
you
it
can
seems like all
establish that
these
you've been lied
lies
about,
seems like these
I would be
lies
in.
get excused
Based.
pretty often
Honey,
because
I know you caught me cheating on you and I'd be happy to discuss these
seems
allegations
like
in
these
2 weeks'
lies go
time.
they get to be excused because you've decided there's a red line. I've crossed the red line into being a
Sorry,
bad
that super
person.
chat was funny.
I've crossed the red line into being a bad person, and now pretty much like all bets are off, right?
You're aligning yourself with a country that is in a war of aggression against another country that is not in a war of aggression with it.
You know what?
Yeah,
Here's the thing, Sunday. Carl Schmitt was a Nazi, okay?
yeah,
So were all the other German conservative revolution thinkers, but somehow that didn't preclude left wing continental thinkers from seriously interrogating their work and taking it
yeah.
seriously.
Yeah, but the reason why they were Nazis is because they were deeply cynical men who wanted to keep their positions in Germany. Carl Schmitt had total
It
contempt for
doesn't
Hitler and the
matter. There
Nazis
was
generally.
somehow
It does matter.
they're used to
It does matter. The point is the bare fact of them being uh, baddies from the perspective of like the liberal hegemony that followed the defeat of the Nazis does not by itself valorize every single thinker who happens to have some toxic or cynical position at any given point. You are not Carl Schmitt, my friend.
No, I'm not saying I am, but it's in contrast to Carl Schmitt, the fact that I support Russia somehow makes it impossible for people
Based.
to, in good faith,
Sunday, I
hear what
think
I
you
have
have a
to say.
problem.
No, it
Fortunately,
doesn't. However, if
Alcoholics
it is the
Anonymous
case
and
that you are
Jesus can save
that you are
you.
supporting Russia in bad faith, um, then it absolutely does justify them dismissing you elsewhere. Life is too short. There are other people to read and pay attention to.
No, it simply doesn't. That's just not true.
Simply doesn't what? I wasn't really.
Because what if my views on Russia are part of a holistic.
No. Going back a little bit, it doesn't what? What are you talking about?
It doesn't justify the other views people decide to have.
With respect to what?
With
It
respect
doesn't.
to
It doesn't need to. Like they're just dismissing you. They don't care about you. There are other people to respond to. Yugen
okay,
himself, for example.
yeah, that's the thing. You can't really dismiss. I don't think it's grounds for dismissal that someone has a contrary view than you do about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Because you may not want to hear this Sunday.
Well, it's not the
I'm pretty
contrariness. It's the
confident in
cynicism
saying,
associated with that.
most of the world vaguely shares my impression and view of that conflict.
I believe your confidence. I do not. I do not think that's true.
You don't think it's true that most of the world agrees with me? If you go,
I don't think it's true that most of the world agrees with you. It also would not
if you
matter for
walk
additional
around
reasons.
on the streets of Mumbai or any major city in China, if you
Can't
go to
say I've been.
Cairo, if you go to Beirut, if you go to, if you go to some random place in Brazil, you go anywhere in the world Sunday of these non-European places, and which is the majority of the world, by the way. You go to you go to Addis Ababa or something, and you ask a random person on the street, "Hey, what do you think
Where's
of what's
Addis
going
Ababa?
on
I've never heard of that place before.
in Ethiopia?"
Okay.
You ask a random person what they think about the Ukraine situation, and you know what they're gonna say? They're gonna say,
Yeah.
"It's about time someone taught the West." Yeah,
Interesting.
that is really.
You know where I didn't get my degree in political science from? Some random person in Ethiopia.
But you have to acknowledge it's a very common sentiment, at least.
Sure.
And on the UN, we know
That's
this for
perfectly
record. Most
possible,
of the
yeah.
world tends to not vote alongside the international community, quote unquote, which is just the Western world, on these more newer resolutions to condemn Russia and oppose Russia. Most of the world continues to open up relations with Russia. Most of the world has no problem whatsoever in continuing to do business with Russia where they can circumvent US sanctions. So this is a sentiment that is
I mean, the
reflected.
Security Council includes Russia and China.
Well, I'm talking about the other member states of the United Nations where they're allowed to vote
Sure.
in yeah. So it's pretty clear that my view is not, I'm not just some horrible antisocial aberration. That might be the case for liberal leftists in
No,
the
I think
West.
there's a lot of money in conservative and right wing politics and social media, and I think
Okay.
you are doing the exact same shtick that Chud Logic is
Do you
doing.
think,
Found that
okay,
you've
Sunday,
found a lot of success
no,
by paying lip service to
logically
it.
speaking.
Destiny's done the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you think I've made more or less money than I would have if I continued to just be a non-controversial leftist? If I was just a leftist who is like aggressive and yelled a lot,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I would be at 500,000 subscribers right now.
Why don't you try?
But objectively, the rate of my growth when I was less controversial was higher than it is now.
My dude, Vosh isn't at 500,000 subscribers right now, and that's exactly what he is doing. Clearly, that wouldn't be the case.
No, it's not, because I don't want to be superficial, but I think there's more of an appeal when it comes to someone like me than Vosh when it's fulfilling this kind of like, red lib. You don't know what a red lib is. Like, Marxist Leninist, yes, but still politically correct, still saying things that are socially acceptable.
Yeah. Not really willing to go beyond sockdem in terms of their radicalness once they reach a certain
in terms of their
level
cultural views,
success, yeah.
but still, defending China, still doing all that stuff, but not in a way that is considered coded.
I don't
as
think
right-wing
Vosh defends
social.
China. I think Vosh is pretty critical of China.
I know. I'm not talking about Vosh.
Well, who
I'm
are we
saying
talking about?
I've never been Vosh. I've always been for people who don't like Vosh, but there's a huge contingent. There's a huge audience. There's a huge niche out there of people who want to be more tankies, quote unquote, right? But are just still committed to the kind of like social liberalism. And turning my back on that probably did harm my growth, if anything. And I'm sitting in a place, believe it or not, Sunday, where I'm not, this turn, it's at least right now has not paid off. If I'm grifting off of the right, has not paid off. The fact that I am reaching primarily right.
I don't know, dude. You're very yelly when it comes to people like socialism done left and perspective philosophy, but your tone gets soft, like a mother singing a lullaby to a babe in a crib when you're talking to someone like Keith Woods. That has not been lost on me.
What did Keith Woods say to disrespect?
I think you know where the path of least resistance lies.
No, what did Keith Woods say to disrespect me? Why shouldn't I just have a conversation with someone as a fellow human being?
With someone who regards non-whites as a barbarous,
including me, including the people to which I had belonged. But I can have the good faith of allowing him to have that as a kind of belief that I have to regard.
That's the price you set on your dignity, my friend. That is
no,
not
it's
my
not.
business.
No, it's not. There's a difference between having a wrong, impersonal view that is prejudiced. Let's say Lebanese people. There's a difference when you have a vague, so-called impersonal impression. Oh, Lebanese people are inferior to me. That doesn't intimidate me. That view doesn't intimidate me. But when you start to treat me as inferior because of that so-called impersonal view that you have, of course I can retaliate. But Keith Woods didn't do that, right? So I don't really care what all range of possible
So
views.
you're fine with him. You're fine with him disparaging the manifold of people.
No,
who
I'm
resemble
not,
you,
and he didn't.
provided he's polite to you in particular.
He didn't disparage.
That doesn't stick in your. That doesn't stick in the back of your mind.
If you recall where the debate got the most heated, by the way, it's when they tried to kind of disparage Somalis, right? Saying they didn't want them as their neighbors, and I found it necessary to point out and I didn't have to resort to emotions either, by the way, Sunday, because unlike many of you, I don't think these right-wing people or audiences are inherently evil. I think it's the deficiencies of the left that has led them to that path, which...
You elaborate? Draw the line of causality. I'm curious.
Yeah. I think leftism is just a bunch of bullshit, and people can see it's inauthentic, and the reason it's inauthentic is because...
Leftism categorically, or are we talking about the online left, or are we talking about Vosh, or what are we talking about?
American leftism
I'm
as it currently
Canadian.
exists.
I'm not
American leftism, in terms of the options on the table as far as what ideologies people will draw from for understanding the world, right? And it seems like leftists are more concerned with fulfilling some kind of abstract moral criteria of I want things to be more fair, I want things to be more right, rather than actually trying to reflect how the world actually is and the actual state of the world. And when it comes to that, right-wingers are far better.
Slow down a sec. What do you mean by that?
It seems like leftists are willing to oftentimes sacrifice facts in the name of what is ideologically or morally convenient.
Do you have a particular case in mind?
What about differences between men and women? How many leftists will concede to the obvious factual disparities, the statistical disparities, for example, between men and women?
Depends on what you mean by men and women, doesn't it?
I don't know what it could possibly mean, no.
You're unfamiliar with the concept of gender as being distinct from sex?
I'm familiar with the concept. I don't know why. I don't know what grounds
40s?
there is for me entertaining that right now.
What do you mean? You brought it up. This is your example.
Right. So when I mean men and women, I mean the vague coincidence, for whatever reason, between people's gender identity and their sex.
What gives rise to that coincidence?
Are you asking for my view, or what, your leftist view, or what?
I'm asking for your view.
I think gender identity is just pretty broadly the cultural expression of sex.
Well, that's clearly not true, because the reason why we have to distinguish gender from sex is because these do not correlate in all cases.
No, they supposedly don't correlate in a very small minority of cases.
Well, in practice,
I don't think
the examples that emerge in time so far that we have seen,
I don't think
have overwhelmingly been consistent with what society pressures them to correspond to.
I don't think exceptions disprove generalities. I don't think it's wrong.
Exceptions do disprove universalities, though.
But no one is making claim. I'm a dialectician. I don't believe in absolute universalities. I just believe in tendencies.
Why are we even talking about sex and gender then? This is trivial. We should move on from this.
Does talking about sex or gender have to imply absolute universalities? Even in nature, there are no absolute...
If you make a statement to the effect that someone is a degen or someone is deluded or what have you, whatever word you like, on the grounds that they behave in a manner that is not consistent with the qualities that you associate with their genital set, then that is going to rest on the basis of a universal claim that genital set determines what their appropriate behavior is.
No, even that statement rests on a lot of assumptions that, for example, the reason...
I agree.
Yeah, well, the reason, for example... I mean, I didn't even say that, and you can't even say that on YouTube, so I'm not even sure why you're bringing it up. It's not something that I could even say, even if I wanted to.
I mean, I'm still here. I don't know about you. Have you been banned since this conversation started?
It's not something you can affirm in the positive on YouTube.
Steven Crowder strongly disagrees.
He's fully demonetized.
Is he actually? I'm not sure that's
Yeah.
true. Hang on, let's see. I'm not denying it. I'm just curious. Is Steven Crowder demonetized? His channel was remonetized after YouTube said Crowder adjusted his behavior and content, and it was demonetized again in March 2021 with uploads suspended for a week after violating YouTube's presidential election integrity policy. Unrelated. That's unfortunate. Well, I guess we'll just never know.
Okay. Well, in any case, I think here's the thing, Sunday. I think what you're probably unwilling to understand is that, and I please implore anyone, right? This is why I'm suspicious of any
I'm listening.
large content creator who hasn't been somehow extremely canceled in some kind of way. You could be innocent. Just assume this. Just assume this. You could be innocent. You can be honest. You can be righteous, right? Okay? At least by some kind of internally consistent criterion. You could just be an honest, righteous, innocent person. And if you go against the status quo while you're on the internet, for some mysterious reason, people find ways to malign your character to such a degree that what they show you of yourself on the internet becomes fundamentally unrecognizable. They make you out to be something that is so radically at odds with what you have actually done, even on the internet itself. It's fucking scary. And that's what people like you are not willing to accept.
If memory does serve, just as an example to maybe pinpoint for a second.
You think
so there is a, are you familiar with a book called We Have Never Been Modern?
Yeah, by Bruno Latour.
Yeah. So you had someone in your chat earlier say something to the effect of like Bruno Latour was right, we've never been modern, and you flat out insulted him in your chat for that, and in a way that is very easily parodied.
Because he disrespectfully said bye-bye, like in a really dismissive way before he said anything. He wasn't like, "Oh, Haas, I disagree with you on this." He wasn't. That's not what happened, dude. Stop saying dumb shit. Anyway, I don't even know how you recall that. But anyway,
me neither, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, well, you managed to recall that, but none of your actual what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people like you, I would say, have the bias of the crowd must be right. If Twitter hates this person,
no, we're outnumbered 100 to 1 right now.
I think it's true though. If Twitter hates this person, if the crowd hates this person, there must be some kind of legitimate reason for that.
Have you seen the numbers of like subscribers for right wing figures on Twitter? It's overwhelmingly in their favor.
Yeah, I can actually speak to that.
Yeah.
Right wing, very rarely, there are a few exceptions, like Fuentes is an exception, but very rarely do right wing personalities acquire the quality of parasociality. Very rarely, right? B, so it's usually just passive support.
I mean, like B, Jordan Peterson, James
very
Lindsay,
rarely,
Ben Shapiro, very passive.
There are a few exceptions. Again, the extreme right is the exception. Like BAP Twitter, right? Bronze Age Pervert, that whole crowd.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah. Where the right wing is not based in any kind of universally accessible discourse. So there are no universally shared conventions as far as right-wing politics sphere about people's reputations. That's why it's really hard for cancel culture to work over there, because no one is that invested in this kind of shared universal discourse about someone's reputation or how someone should be regarded morally in the first place. That's
because they're all selling the same snake oil, so their standards for entry are like next to dinosaur bones.
You can interpret it that way if you want.
That's a fact. But you pay attention to anything they say, they're insane.
Okay, again. But what was the original point?
I'm as stumped as you are.
Yeah, because I don't really think you're following with this, right? The original point is that you could be like a passerby who's viewing this person who's getting so maligned and hated And you could be the type of person who goes, you know what? There must be a legitimate reason for that. The crowd can't be wrong. I trust the crowd. I trust the open society. There's no way that this person is so hated and so maligned, and it's not unfair. And that is a fundamental left-wing bias.
And that's one that you think that you are above.
Yes, I do, actually.
Good. I'm glad you say that. So, when are we arranging the debate between you and Demon Mama?
Me and you?
You and Demon Mama in particular. I don't have that kind of maligned reputation. I'm sort of a nobody.
I mean,
right
I would not be opposed to. Why are you bringing that up?
I think it'd be funny. I think
Again, this is just like a vague. Again. See, the thing is, Sunday, it's a vague allusion to some kind of like hierarchy of reputations that exists on the left, and I'm not sure has. Why should that have?
No,
any
I think generally we're
significance?
beyond reputation at this point, because like what you could point to is that almost every single person who criticizes you, just as you criticize them, has an equally, tainted reputation. Almost everybody in this sphere has a completely muddied
I don't
persona.
think so. I think I am probably regarded. I think I'm probably one of the most unfairly maligned personalities on the internet.
Everybody thinks that about themselves.
But I think in my case, it's pretty. If you actually look into it, it's pretty indisputable.
Once again, you're defending a regime that has killed children.
Okay, that's
not a lot of people have done so.
You know what's interesting, Sunday? That's your reason, and yet the animosity toward me is not different in content, and it's for multiple reasons. That's your reason. There's other reasons too. There could be a person who disagrees with me over the Sino-Albanian split, and they will treat me the same way you do. So in content, whoever threw shit on me, and it's strange, Sunday, because this only really began when it started to become clear that I was starting to impact the CPUSA internally, and there started to be a big internal debate within the CPUSA around the fall of 2021. And all of a sudden, it's so very strange. All of a sudden, all of these astroturfed tweets maligning me and shitting on me, basically.
I don't know the first thing about that. All I know is going after people for having blue hair and boobs with penises.
Sunday.
And,
Sunday. I'm like an incel misogynist guy, right?
Are you? That's unfortunate.
No, but that's probably what you think of me. Most people think of me that way, right?
I don't think about you at all, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah, but that's your vague impression, right?
No.
No, it's not.
I think you're a failed law student who plays a character on the internet for donations.
That's brilliant. That's a beautiful example. Oh my god, I'm so glad you said that, dude. I even forgot about that one. So let's talk about that. Now, just because you disagree with me on Russia and Ukraine, is it really fair to say I'm a failed law student?
I think these are completely separate things.
But why am I a failed
I understood you to drop out. Now, me personally, if I was a successful law student, I wouldn't be hitting up YouTube before I had my degree. But that's just me.
I actually didn't drop out, though. That's the thing.
Oh, really? So you graduated. Congratulations.
No. Again, has it ever occurred to you that you could take a leave of absence?
It's a long leave of absence, my friend.
It is,
even out of law school.
And do you know, so you're not familiar with it. Again, you're maligning me. I mean, if I was less controversial, I don't think you would call me a failed law student. If I supported Ukraine, you'd probably not call me that, right? You'd probably call me something else.
If once again, if you were not cheerleading a regime that killed a bunch of innocent
then I wouldn't be
children,
a failed law student anymore.
I probably would give you the benefit of the doubt, but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in.
Lecture. You know what's crazy? Sunday is like, it's almost like retro-causally, facts about me start to change based on
the word you're looking at is
more
retroactively.
overarching political positions that I take. Like, if I support Russia, it's like Schrodinger's law student. If I support Russia, I'm a failed law student. If I don't support Russia, now you can just admit that I actually completed my first year of law school at the same time that I started streaming, and law school was getting in the way of my streaming hours, and I was growing so rapidly that I decided to take a 1-year leave of absence in law school to see if I could continue being successful doing the streaming thing. You would know that while I was in law school, I was suffering from an extreme level of clinical insomnia. I was extremely miserable, doing law
Yeah, that's
school.
fair.
It wasn't
I'm
my
I'm
vocation.
I'm no I'm no stranger to that. I understand.
Wasn't my passion, wasn't my vocation. I hated it. I hated the American legal system. I
Fine.
hated having to take positions I didn't
Then
believe
just
in.
look, dude. Just own it. Not everybody can hack law school. It's not a slight against your character.
But I completed.
It's an inhuman thing you're being forced into. I think only privileged people can really do it painlessly.
Sunday. I completed my first year of law school with no problem.
How many
While
years
I
of law
was
school are
streaming
there?
I was streaming full time.
You said
while
you said you were dealing with like crippling insomnia. Like that doesn't sound like no problem to me.
Yeah, not
Once
because
again, I'm not. That's
yeah,
not something
but
you're
hold on.
blameworthy for.
Sunday.
That doesn't make you weak.
Sunday.
It's
That wasn't
just a fact of the
because
matter.
that wasn't because law school was too difficult for me. It was because I wasn't doing what I believed I should be doing. That wasn't because law school was too difficult.
You say so, but you don't have your law degree, so I guess we won't know.
So if I go and conveniently, if I stop streaming and stop being active that much on the internet and go get my law degree, Schrodinger's law student, then you'll say something else to malign me, right?
No, you'll have. I'll say the exact same thing as I've said tonight, but in addition, you'll have a law degree. Huzzah!
So so I'm not a failed law student anymore. I'm a what? I'm a failed streamer then. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, you might be. Like,
yeah. Again. No matter what, that's what I'm talking about. It's a retro.
Can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs.
Dude, leftist, and Destiny's included in this. I include him in the left because they behave the same way. Your reputation is literally based on nothing factual. It's based on whether you're the in-group or the out-group, right? And if you're out,
I'm pretty sure my reputation is based on making a bunch of autistic video essays about Carl Schmitt and Dead Space, but...
Okay, again. But fundamental facts about your character become maligned, whether or not they're true or not, having nothing to do with their factual validity, solely because people assume positions you disagree with. I think that's unjust. I think that's fundamentally unjust. And that's why I think leftism...
we aren't talking about positions like, oh, I agree with Richard Rorty's critique of Descartes' distinction between the mind and
no,
body
we're
as
talking about the
different
positions that
substances.
actually matter in objective reality in the information sphere.
The ones in which, on the basis of minimal information, you decide to cheerily decide that we know for a certain fact has decided, for selfish reasons, to bomb schools and hospitals
this
and
with
kill
certain
children,
fact.
innocent people.
You know this
I do. I've seen the bodies.
Sure, but you know this with certain fact, and yet it's not allowed to be subjected to any scrutiny. So it's kind of a paradox.
I don't think you're subjecting them to scrutiny. I think you're taking a position of scrutiny, looking because that's a niche that you can fill and benefit
I don't
from
think
financially.
you're subjecting your presumptions about the conflict to scrutiny because you literally claim that you need 2 weeks to do that.
Well, no, that's actually precisely acknowledging that scrutiny takes time. Scrutiny is expensive. It's why you don't do it.
And yet, this is the problem, Sunday. You are engaging in... You're drawing out normative consequences of something you have not justified.
I don't believe I am called upon to justify a critique of somebody for killing children for
But you don't know.
gains.
If you don't know, how can you actually start taking actions against someone? This is exactly... By the way, this is exactly my problem.
Hang on. What don't I know?
If you don't know everything about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, how can you take action against someone in relation to it? Oh, Haas is evil because of something I don't know? How can you actually do harm to another human being if you're not fully certain of your position that this indicts them as a bad person?
No, Haas is evil because he's cheerleading a regime that we do know is killing children.
Again, that's if you want, that's what we're gonna call the synthetic statement here, right? The synthetic statement is not a priori. It's not. You're not talking about space and time. You're talking about a synthetic statement that requires some way. It has to be subject to scrutiny by default, right? In order for it to be justified.
That's not what that means. But we can
yeah, it kind of is what it means.
It's really not, though.
Yeah, synthetic statements are statements that result from some kind of non-given whatever, right? Pretty much is what it is.
No, that's not what that is.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Yeah. Am I wrong
giving me a mild aneurysm. You are a little bit, but it's not important.
Why am I wrong? synthetic
God.
statements are not true by virtue of some kind of like axiomatic internal reason. Like, you know, bachelors are unmarried. It's not a synthetic statement because it's true by virtue of the definition of what a bachelor is, okay? Something that's contingent that could be subjected to some kind of other possibility is what's synthetic. So, for example, if you say that bachelors wear pink shoes, it's not inherent to the definition of a bachelor. It's the result of a contingent observation in reality. So, yes, of course, that requires scrutiny. Is that wrong or what?
You lost me. Rewind a little bit. What were we moving into this for?
We're moving into this because your statement that I'm going to bracket it, that you're evil because you're cheerleading Russia doing X horrible evil things for X horrible reasons. That's exactly what you can't be certain of if you can't subject it to certainty. It's not inherent in the definition of Russia, for example, that you can draw out all these conclusions about what Russia's doing. You need to actually subject that to some kind of scrutiny before you're going to draw out morally relevant consequences in terms of how you treat other human beings.
Once again, you're operating under the same information that everybody else is. You saw a country aggressing on another one, bombing hospitals and civilian centers, causing mass death, etc., needlessly.
So don't you think?
Jumped on
Hold on.
jumped
Do you
on
think
propagandists hired by that
Maybe
state?
this is maybe you're just drunk and you somehow can't fathom. Well, you're not drunk because when you're sober you have the same prejudice. But don't you think it's possible for something to be factually the same scenario, but it can be spinned in completely opposite ways? What makes your way of spinning? What makes your narrative superior to Russia's narrative?
I'm not cheerleading killing children.
Russia is saying you're doing that because you are allowing the Ukrainian military to continue doing
Russia's tanks are in Ukrainian territory.
to protect children, to protect children from Ukraine.
Russia's tanks are in Ukraine to protect children from what they will do to them if Ukraine doesn't let the tanks roll in, huh?
No, to protect them from the regular shelling of the people in the Donbass.
Why are shells being exchanged at all?
Because the people in the Donbass don't.
Because Russia invaded and gave artificial support to a seditious group.
That's not true, because that seditious group is based in the general will.
That is true.
Of the people in the Donbass.
The general will that needs the material support of a foreign invader. Yeah, that's some general will.
So did the Continental Army need the material support of the French? I think history books will tell you they did.
Doesn't matter.
Just because a people disposed of a general will are receiving material support doesn't mean that is reducible to that.
Well,
support.
no. What it means is that the general will that you're referring to is not the general will of the Donbass. It's the general will of the Russian people.
No, it's not. If the people of the Donbass, broadly speaking, don't want to live under what they consider...
What generality is the will, Haas, if it requires a massive foreign force to assert itself?
Do you think a general will necessarily has to have the military...
Can you answer the question?
I'm going to ask you the question. Do you think a general...
But I asked you a question. Can you answer it? You can say you can't. That's fine if you can't.
Your question is, can there be a general will if it requires...
No, my question was, of what generality is the will if it requires a massive foreign force to assert itself?
It doesn't.
Of what? Not
it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Of what? The question is wrong. It doesn't. What? It doesn't need Russia to assert its will. It needs Russia to protect that.
Then Russia invaded needlessly, did it not? That's the immediate upshot of that statement.
You're drunk, dude. You're drunk. Think about what you're saying logically and don't interrupt me. They don't need Russia to assert their will. They need Russia for their will to be defended. They've asserted their will very clearly in their refusal and the establishment of the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. That was the assertion of their general will. As far as the ability to pretext
Were those established as a result of Russia's incursion into Ukrainian territory?
no,
Really?
no.
Really? So those just happened spontaneously and Russia just it's just coincidence, just a coinkydink. They happened to be rolling tanks into Ukraine during that time.
What do you mean? Of course, it was related to the broader sentiment of wanting to join Russia. Yes.
Where are we having this conversation? Modern day debate? 2 weeks?
Okay, well, I guess you can decide when you want to have it.
No, balls in your court, my friend.
Okay, I can have it in 1 week. Well, you need 2 minimum?
I like 2. 2's nice. How about 1.5?
Okay, well, we can have it the 20th if you need 2.
Let's see. What is that? 20th. Oh, that's a Monday. I hate Mondays.
Okay, how about Sunday the 19th?
Well, no, we'll do the 20th. We'll talk with James and what's the topic? Dealer's choice.
It's all of the topics that you are not presently equipped to debate about as
How
it
about we pick?
pertains.
How about we pick? How about we pick 3 and let's try to find a
Okay.
happy medium between
Okay,
them.
MAGA communism.
What do you mean, like the existence of MAGA communism?
The the theory behind it.
As given in the stream that you're currently
Or my Substack.
or your Substack. Can you give me a link to that?
You could just look up the rise of MAGA communism on Google. It'll be the first result.
Well, you have me on Discord, so why don't you just send me that, and that will equip me to address that.
It's called the rise of MAGA communism. I'm sure your mods can link it to you.
Rise of MAGA communism. Okay, so that's one. We got 2, 3 more.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Okay, Russia, Ukraine. Particular thing about that? You think you've been unjustly maligned on the basis of your position vis-a-vis that? Do you want to make that
Yeah, sure.
the subject? All right. Reputation slurred. And finally,
It should be trying to remember it. It should be
how about Dugan?
Yes, but there was also something else. The Russia-Ukraine conflict and okay, yeah, we could just do what you said and then Dugan.
How about we just do the first 2, okay? We'll do we'll loop them both under you have been unjustly maligned on the basis of your political philosophy such as it is being uncharitably interpreted and on the basis of a knee-jerk reaction to your defense of a child murdering, mass raping regime. Fair?
Yeah, it's definitely something I'm gonna have on Rumble. Holy fuck. Okay, yeah.
All right.
You're not. It's not gonna be called that because the burden of proof is on you to demonstrate the validity of your accusations against Russia in the first place. Oh yeah, I was gonna say. I remember what I was gonna say. It's gonna be part of the second topic. Whether or not I'm a disingenuous actor or a bad faith actor, whether or not my views on Russia are not based on a pretty consistent, holistic worldview, or if you want to call it a principle that I have never deviated from since launching the Infrared Show, whose tagline was always Marxism, Leninism in the age of multipolarity and the post-COVID world, where I have consistently defended Russia and Putin. It was my casus belli in my first debate with Vosh. You can recall how I bring up Russia and I bring up Putin.
I can't actually. I don't believe I've watched that
It
yet.
was literally there in my first debate with Vosh. I'm not a grifter. I'm not jumping on any convenient thing. The very first stream, I believe, when I had 2 viewers, dude. My first videos, I have done interviews with Ilya Medvedev, was in the Donbass. I've done videos with Katya Kazbek to talk about Russia and my appreciation for Dugin and Russian civilization and Putin. Some of my first videos on my channel are defense of Putin against liberal criticisms. My first
You're a
ones,
hero.
dude. Saying that I'm a grifter and I've kind of sold out, it's just so inconsistent with the facts, but I'm sure you need 2 weeks to prepare for that.
Well, I mean, personally, if you had refused and I was forced to commit now, I'd be perfectly happy with calling you a grifter from time immemorial. But
Okay, what made me a grifter, though?
On the basis of insufficient evidence, on the basis of insufficient motive, you took on the cause of a foreign invader of a foreign country that was killing
But wait,
children and
hold
innocent
on.
people.
You can talk about Russia's alleged...
That was itself an empire, by the way, a capitalist empire, no
Okay,
less.
sure. But you have to admit, you can claim that all you want.
I can.
You can, yeah, but you would be it'd be baseless to claim it, by the way. But
It's not that baseless.
you can claim that. But the facts stand that I do have cause. It is consistent with the worldview I've espoused since my very first stream on YouTube.
Once again, I do not spend my every waking moment chronicling.
I know,
your
dude, but
escapades
what
on
was
stream.
okay? Then what's the description on my YouTube channel?
I don't know.
That's been there forever.
I don't know.
Marxism, Leninism in the age of multipolarity in the post-COVID world.
You say so.
What do you think that means?
I'm quite sure I don't care. We are meeting on the 20th.
Okay.
I'll see you then.
You said you can justify that I'm a grifter. You can't, dude. You can't.
Well, we'll see, won't we?
I've never changed. The
It's
only thing
not-
that changed.
You're not required to change. Some people are corrupt when they get started. I don't know.
Then you should have crucified me on the cross of corruption instead of switching up and deciding all bets are off because I took a position in contemporary world politics that you weren't comfortable with.
Maybe you're right.
Yeah, but again, it's Schrodinger's reputation. At first, I was a good guy, and now I'm the worst guy in the world. Thank you so much, Blackback. Appreciate you.
Do you think he talks to people IRL like this? I can hear both the cholesterol and glasses in his
I don't know.
voice.
I don't know, but
I mean, you can probably hear the glasses in my voice. I was chewing on them earlier.
if you are, I don't think you can say you're minimally committed to justice. You're minimally committed to any righteous position, any position of virtue, basically. When you die on this fucking hill, I'm just gonna
Which hill is
attack you,
this?
Haas, because it's convenient to, and everyone else is doing it, so I'm safe in doing it.
Which hill is this precisely?
When I started covering the Ukraine war, Destiny, probably not even personally, probably some State Department or CIA shit, he threw his whole fucking community at me immediately to stop me, right? Because I was growing pretty fast on Twitch. And it was like Operation Destroy Haas Infrared. Like, for what? I didn't do nothing personally against Destiny. Someone clearly told him.
Maybe I've been too hard on him.
Sorry?
Maybe I've been too hard on him.
Yeah, I think you should probably reconcile because but you were his ass kisser back then, and you started attacking me.
I was Destiny's ass kisser back then, really.
Yeah, and you started
Really?
attacking me. You joined in
Interesting.
you joined in with Destiny and Dylan Burns because you were basically socially aligned with
Someday,
them.
will you promise
pretty
here
sure
now
I
to
attacked
enter
Dylan
treatment for your
Burns and Destiny
alcoholism
both
and
in
come to the
advance
debate
of attacking you.
100%?
You attacked Destiny and Dylan Burns afterwards, right? Later.
No, I'm
you
pretty
guys-
sure I attacked Dylan Burns way in advance, and I attacked Destiny later on. I have no.
No, I remember what happened.
I have no friendly
I remember what
feelings
happened, 'cause
towards
it happens
Destiny.
quite often, 'cause-
Back when I was on the right, I used
Yeah.
to despise Destiny. He was
So I
he was
I
the weird
usually- no,
Weasley
no,
guy with
I
the voice
usually-
like Stretch from Casper the Friendly
but
Ghost who was arguing with Medicare.
I usually do have this experience where, I will deal with Destiny's orbiters, his ass kissers basically, and they'll come at me. And then later on, they'll have a feud with Destiny and break with Destiny. Oh, Haas, I was always against Destiny. And then you think I forgive them? I don't, right? So you just told me, for example, oh, Haas, I appreciate the way you confronted Chud logic because you have beef with Chud logic now. Where were you?
It's a shame. It's a shame it came from you, but
Yeah.
I did.
But where were you before when you, alongside Chud logic, were all joining the chorus of whatever to malign me and attack me?
Malign you
Where
on
were
what
you then?
grounds? What? That's an excellent question. I'm quite sure I can't remember. What were we saying? To
You
what
were
effect?
just with all of my enemies.
Well, I mean, you have a lot of enemies, my friend.
You're right, I do. And you'd think a grifter would be smarter than that if they were a grifter than
Jordan
to make...
Peterson has a lot of enemies. Steven Crowder has a lot of enemies. Destiny has a lot of enemies.
No. I, in contrast to Jordan Peterson and Steven Crowder, have far more haters than I do supporters. And I know my supporters are the most devoted in the world, right? I have
Well, that's just luck of the draw. That's not for lack of
I
talent, I'm
have
sure.
the most extremely devoted supporters because they see the truth and it makes them extremely devoted to me. But the truth is, yes, I have far, far more haters than I do supporters. Far more. And if I was a fucking grifter, I would be more like these milquetoast, Hakeem, second thought people that would never ever say something that would get Twitter to be mad at me or pissed off at me.
You think second thought is
Absolutely, yeah. Second
fewer
Thought
fans
made
and haters?
videos condemning North Korea as a dictatorship, and now he's sensed the wind is going in the direction of ML as the new trend. And he also joined the Communist Party mysteriously. And he's
You think the trend is ML, huh? Interesting.
yeah. You haven't observed that?
No, but I haven't really been paying attention either.
So would you agree democratic socialism was a trend?
Democratic socialism was a trend.
Yeah.
When are we talking?
Like 2016 to up to COVID, basically.
Oh, you're asking the wrong person. I was right wing then.
What?
I was on the right then. I was actually friends with Keith Woods until fairly
Yeah,
recently.
DSA was like a thing, right? Pretty trendy. Hassan Piker. Does it ring a bell?
I never got the appeal of Hassan.
Okay, well, it was a trend, and a lot of that is starting to change into ML. I was there first, but it's happening. Vosh is getting hated on all the time on Twitter, and the reason
you think Hakeem isn't ML?
Hakeem identifies that way, yeah.
But you don't think he really is?
No, I don't.
Why is that?
I think Hakeem is what I would probably call a
Based.
Thank you so much, PJ.
Luck of the draw.
Probably call him a radical social democrat, but I think Hakeem is utilizing the rhetoric of Marxism-Leninism to justify what I would call your milquetoast, WEF, I will say globalist, liberal politics, but just given the sanction of, the state of emergency political dictatorship, he's projecting that kind of politics onto, communist states throughout history, but it's based in what I consider a pretty dangerous, almost fascist-like a way of trying to sanction the increasingly undemocratic dictatorial powers of liberal countries, like, for example, Canada, where the Trudeau government started to freeze the bank accounts of people involved in the Freedom Convoy movement and so on and so forth. And they're kind of just saying, oh yeah, that's just like Stalinism. So
it is really spectacular that your freedom alarm goes off when a bunch of people are flouting a pandemic response ordinance, but not when tanks are rolling over a border, bombing hospitals, bombing schools, causing the mass exodus of civilians.
Yeah, I do think
I think
a war based on a geopolitical confrontation is not the same as a government that is proclaims to be a liberal democracy.
No, you think as soon as the government wants territory and land for the aggrandizement of a dying old lunatic's
I would not
legacy.
describe that as having anything to do with the circumstances of the Russia-Ukraine war. Again, you're not prepared to actually have your position scrutinized, so just don't even bring it up.
We will in 2 weeks. I'm a little bit curious though. what do you suppose the reason for the Russian-Ukraine war is then?
If I have to one sentence, NATO expansion.
You think that Ukraine wanting to join NATO and being obliged is a justification for Russia invading Ukraine?
No, if I have to say two sentences, it's NATO expansion plus the civil war in the Donbass.
But the civil war in the Donbass was triggered by Russia's incursion into Ukraine.
Not true. Not true. Not
Very true.
It was triggered by the
unthinkable without
Okay,
Russia's
was the
incursion into
Maidan
Ukraine.
revolution constitutional according to the Constitution of Ukraine?
It's a revolution, Haas.
Okay, sure. The revolution overthrew a leader, Poroshenko. Are you familiar with him? He
Not
was
a nice
voted
guy.
into power. Do you agree?
Was he voted into power under a corrupt system?
Was
And moreover, does the
is-
fact that he was voted into power undermine the legitimacy of a government that follows once the legitimacy of that one is overthrown by force?
Okay, well, don't assume the point I'm trying to make. Where did Poroshenko receive the highest amounts of approval and support, as reflected in the Ukrainian elections?
I'm entirely certain I don't know, and I'm entirely certain I don't know
I am
why
entirely
it
certain that I
matters.
do know that Poroshenko received the overwhelming majority of his support from the Russian-speaking Donbass because he was friendlier toward Russia than the alternative. So one half of Ukraine wants to overthrow him, and the other half sees Poroshenko.
Is that one half of Ukraine?
No, it's not exactly one half, but it's one part of Ukraine.
What is the point of you saying this?
Saying one part of Ukraine supports Poroshenko, and one part of Ukraine wants nothing. Sorry, one part of Ukraine wants to overthrow him, and one part wants nothing to do with this so-called revolution. The unity of the territory of Ukraine, by the way, because it was formerly part of the USSR in which multiple ethnic groups and language groups coexisted, the social contract that is the foundation of the Ukrainian state was the fact that the Ukrainian state was going to be democratic, that people's vote...
The social contract is the foundation of the Ukrainian state? You mean the Ukrainian state arose out of a state of nature?
You don't have to get into any stupid technicality. If you want me to,
I mean, you brought up the social contract. That's your justification.
I'll break down what I mean by that. The acceptance of being part of a independent Ukrainian state on part of the other non-Ukrainian speaking groups and ethnic groups was that it would be a democracy, that their vote would matter, they would have a voice and stake in the system, and that their interests could be reflected in that state. That's the social contract I'm referring to. When that social contract is...
If I continue.
Yeah, that is a social contract.
That's not a social contract.
A social contract in which a people decide that a government has to reflect and represent its interests.
No, the social contract is a justificatory scheme. Is a justificatory scheme for a state that refers the legitimacy of the state to the internal impulses of its constituent members.
That's exactly what I just said.
That is not what
Yes,
you just
it is.
said.
It's the justification of the Ukrainian state and its territorial sovereignty refers to the impulses of its members in relation to whether or not their interests are being reflected. Or they have a stake in that state. So yeah, it is. Okay? Anyway, it's what I just said. That's why there wasn't...
No, it's not, because what you're talking about is an assessment after the fact as to whether or not their interests are being reflected.
No. When I say their interests are reflected, I mean there is some formal way in which to establish people's will being reflected by the state. That doesn't mean their will is always going to be everyone's.
Well, yeah, but that's because that's why there's a notion of tacit consent. Because if you do not actively rebel and choose death over conformity to the ordinances of the Commonwealth, then you have essentially assented to the legitimacy of the state. That's the social contract.
No, it's a social contract, because if you have the right to vote and you're the right for your vote to matter and to count right? That means yes, the state can reflect your interests. So it reflects.
Sure, the state can reflect your interests if you can vote. But the definition of a social contract is not that you have the right to vote. The social contract is you play ball with the community and then benefit from doing so. That's what that means.
Okay,
It's not at the level of democracy.
The people in the Donbass played ball.
Like the notion of a social contract comes about in the defense of monarchy.
Sunday. This is a pedantic kind of like pointless thing to say because
you brought up social contract, my dude.
No,
not
it's
me.
not.
I don't even know why you're doing
It is a social contract. It's objectively a social contract.
It's objectively
Yes.
not. You're talking about something else.
Dude, the people of Eastern Ukraine are playing ball with the community of Ukraine because they benefit by having their interests represented somehow by the Ukrainian sovereign state. They can vote, right?
Well, that's not
one
no.
example.
But the social contract is not
You
explaining
made
how
a
they are
straw
able
man.
to
This
vote.
is the bad faith I'm talking about.
No. You're just uninformed about what social contract theory is.
Sunday. No, let's break this down. I'm glad you're prepared for this. When did I say that voting was the only form of a social contract? That's the only interest relevant in a social contract?
I didn't.
So when you said, "Oh, a social contract isn't when people are allowed to vote,"
I didn't suggest that you were saying that.
I didn't say a social contract in general is when people are allowed to vote. I'm saying that could be an example of a factor necessary for a social contract.
But it's actually not a factor necessary for a social contract. Once again, the notion of a social contract is introduced. No. It actually can't be, because the notion of a social contract is operating at a level specifically. This is why it's introduced by Thomas Hobbes to defend a monarchical system. Voting is not a condition of the social contract at all.
You don't think Locke has a notion of a social contract too?
Locke does have a notion of a social contract.
Okay, and Rousseau does as well.
Yes, but it does not rely on voting. No, hang on. No, you're mistaken. Locke and Rousseau do not rely upon there being a vote for there to be a social contract. The social contract is to justify the legitimacy of the voting apparatus.
The generality of a social contract doesn't exclude the possibility of the ability to vote and participate in the political system.
Its function in a theory is as a justification for the legitimacy of the voting process itself. You're just being
Yes, and the voting process cannot be legitimate. For example, if a certain, and this is not always the case, but it's the case in Ukraine, if a certain portion of the population either can't vote or their vote doesn't count.
Why does their vote not count? What are you talking about?
Because there was a fucking coup. They elected a guy, and that guy was overthrown illegally according to the Constitution, which was the basis of the social contract that allowed these people to be loyal to the Ukrainian state. If you suspend...
Did he not enact violence on the demos prior to the revolution?
That's highly contested.
Well, that's an important contest, though. If indeed the executive power in Ukraine,
as a general, no,
if indeed the executive power in Ukraine, if indeed the executive power in Ukraine was inflicting lethal violence on the people to remain in this station against the Constitution, then this is the problem
with being arrogant, Sunday, because you're not actually educated like you're claiming you are. Because
I'm not claiming anything.
In order for you to establish violence,
I claim absolutely nothing.
Sunday,
I'm saying if.
Sunday, let me finish.
If.
Why are you so scared to hear me finish?
I fear nothing.
Notice how I never interrupt you, because I actually want to hear the dumb shit you're going to say so I can respond. You do the contrary. You don't want to hear what I have to say because you can't respond.
No, I just also want to hear myself. I'm just egotistical like that.
Sunday. In order for you to establish the people as a general subjectivity, you have to establish that violence epitomized a general violence on the people in general. So, for example, when
can you slow down? Just hang on.
Yeah. So, for example,
try restating that. Don't use an example. Just restate that.
I'll restate it with an example. When a state locks up criminals or takes action against a violent mob on the street, that doesn't necessarily mean they're engaging in lethal violence on the people, quote unquote. It means
but hang on. No. You have to be really careful here, though, and this is why I wanted you to restate the thing before you start bringing up the example. Because it is not sufficient to simply say that the part of the demos that the executive power is persecuting against the Constitution is criminal, therefore it's okay. Then use that as a blanket justification for now a separate political entity
We're not
entirely,
talking about a foreign force.
incurring
Dude,
with
why are you all
the
over
Russian
the place?
state? Absolutely.
Sunday.
Russia by itself is an empire.
Dude,
That's not
you
a
see how
single
you pivot?
natural community that emerged out of
Holy shit.
nature.
Okay, I'm going to be calm. I'm going to try to be calm, but I want to explain to you why that frustrates me. So we are just talking about the circumstances of the legitimacy of the quote-unquote revolution here for the people in the Donbass. Now you're talking about the Russian SMO. Why do you have to jump around? Let's focus on the people on the Donbass.
It's a big world, and unfortunately, the Donbass itself is not something that simply insists upon itself as a
Sunday. The thing is, the people in the Donbass
generating element in this discussion.
The social contract that kept the people in the Donbass.
The social contract did not keep anybody in the Donbass anything. Stop using the word social contract. This doesn't mean what you think it means.
The people of the Donbass's social contract with the Ukrainian state was suspended when their elected representative was overthrown in an unconstitutional, formally invalid way.
Okay, was he overthrown after he was attacking his own people with lethal force?
Even if he did attack rioters on the street with lethal force, which is contested.
Why are they're rioters as soon as it's convenient for you, but you're perfectly happy to fly your flag in favor of Putin rolling tanks over, packed with people he had to pull off the street because his own...
Sunday.
What?
Even if he did do that, it doesn't say in the Ukrainian constitution that quelling a riot is grounds for the dismissal of the president.
So what?
Well, the constitution is the only...
If he's characterizing attacking again members of the Demos for exercising their constitutional right to protest.
But the Ukrainian constitution is the only binding document that's protecting the rights of the people in the Donbass.
Hawes. I thought you were like a Marxist or a Leninist or something. Like you're just a radical statist. Like you're a conservative.
You know what's funny is that Adam something brought up the same pathetic argument in our debate.
I don't know what that is.
Destiny. Yeah, he brought up the same argument. He said, "Well, aren't you a revolutionary who simply believes in the overthrow of the state?" Well, if I'm just giving a description as far as why a people don't want to be a part of a state anymore, because the state is avowing itself as a liberal democracy. I am not actually a liberal statist. But when your state calls itself...
But you kind of are, though, because Russia still assumes the liberal form of the state.
Then don't interrupt me.
Russia is invading...
Sunday, shut the fuck up. Don't interrupt me and I'll explain why. Okay?
No, you cut out for a second. What were you saying?
Don't interrupt me and I'll fucking explain why. Stop
what was I interrupting?
Yeah, you were. Okay?
No, I can't. I'm sorry. You're cutting out a little bit. What were you saying again? Repeat that.
Damn, you're so scared of an actual, dispute over this. It's crazy. Again, I'm not a liberal statist.
What's going on with the audio here? Hang on. This is weird.
Can he not hear me? Is he lying, guys? Go on his stream. Is he actually lying? The fuck? Again, I'm just going to say it anyway.
What the fuck is going on
He's trolling. Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Hello?
Yeah, he's trolling. All right, that's fine. I'm going to explain it anyway. I'm not a radical liberal statist. Precisely because if the form of sovereignty was a liberal democracy...
Why can't I hear anything?
Yeah, if Ukraine was a liberal democracy and then it forgoes its promise, all bets are off. The people in the Donbass don't have to care about Ukraine's democracy. They can indeed join Russia.
Oh, god damn it. There we go.
They can form their own...
Yeah. Hang on. Rewind a little bit. Sorry, I lost you at...
Yeah, okay. I know where you lost me. I remember. So
it was like 2 minutes ago, I think.
Liberal statism. I'm not a liberal statist because all I'm trying to say is that on its own terms, when the liberal state suspends the terms of its own sovereignty, all bets are off. That's all I'm saying.
When the liberal state suspends the terms of its own sovereignty.
Yeah, or
by what mechanism does it do so?
Through a violent, unconstitutional coup.
Hang on. Slow down, cowboy. So the liberal state, upends its own sovereignty by means of a general uprising, which is itself definitionally, by being a revolution, itself constitutive of a state.
Yes, the form of the prior state sovereignty, which was a liberal constitutional democracy, indeed was overthrown And there's a new form of sovereignty that's based in a dictatorship, or it's at least based in a coup or a founding coup, which was unconstitutional.
But so was the previous one, no? Like, where does the Constitution come from?
What previous one?
Exactly. Where does the Constitution come from?
When Ukraine ceded from the USSR.
We're not defending the rights of the Sassanians to Ukraine. Like, was it the Sassanians? Hang on. Something against.
When Ukraine left the USSR, instead of Eastern Ukraine joining Russia, instead of Western Ukraine...
Scythians, that's who it was. Sorry, continue.
Okay. When Ukraine left the USSR, it created a constitution that was supposed to respect and recognize the rights of all of the people living under it in a liberal democracy, where they would have the right and the ability to give expression to their interests through the political process.
Just fast forward to the part where this justifies Russia in particular rolling through with tanks and bombing hospitals.
I think it's such like a pornographic mentality. We are going through in intricate detail the events, and you can't let go of, oh, Russia invaded Ukraine. We know, but how did they get there? You don't want to actually...
With tanks, Hawes. With tanks.
No, they didn't get there with tanks. They got there with a decades-long process by NATO to expand eastward and use Ukraine, countries like Ukraine.
Well, that doesn't really make sense because NATO's going eastward, Russia was going westward. So how does that work? How does
Russia did not go westward until after NATO had so severely expanded eastward that Russia has no choice but to put its foot down
NATO's a treaty organization, like it's in the name. So NATO didn't roll in with tanks. Ukraine wanted to join NATO. Now explain to me how Russia's neighbor joining NATO justifies Russia attacking.
It doesn't. That's
why
Russia didn't attack Lithuania, Estonia, or the Baltic countries when they joined NATO. But
it did attack Crimea.
Again, we're still talking about Ukraine.
And it did attack Ukraine.
It did not attack Crimea, by the way.
Really?
There was no attack.
Really?
No,
so
there wasn't an attack.
Crimea just had like a general plebiscite, and they just decided, hey, we're Russia now.
Pretty
That's
much,
thing, right?
actually.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much.
Really?
More or less, like, yeah, more or
and
less.
And then those soldiers rolling in, those were CGI'd in, right? That was like a big media campaign. That was all fake.
Soldiers rolling in to defend the soldiers rolling in to defend the integrity of an electoral process is not.
That's interesting. See, it's not common in Canada here to see United States tanks rolling in to defend the integrity of an election when we have it, especially in advance of any kind of any kind of insurrectionary action against the election itself.
That's because Canada is not part of some Hyperborean superstate that is refusing to acknowledge Canada's existence. And it's not, and the U.S. doesn't have a vested interest.
Well, Britain's not doing that either, and we are a part of the Commonwealth. So
okay, again. Okay, what does that have to do with anything?
That's the $1 million question, Haas.
No, what does being part of the Commonwealth have to do with anything? Your analogy was stupid.
I agree. What does being a part of a Commonwealth have to do with anything? What does being a part of a treaty organization have to do with anything?
Being part of a quote unquote
here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you.
Being not part of a quote unquote defensive alliance that was founded to destroy Russia?
Let's say NATO gave Ukraine like a whole bunch of tanks and anti-air support as just a gift when Ukraine was vying to join NATO, right? What part of that justifies Russia in rolling in and bombing civilian centers?
Do you have like a pornographic brain? Can you just not think about things that don't fulfill some kind of like immediate cerebral satisfaction or something? Like, follow what you're saying. Are you trying to imply that is the only factor here? Are you trying to say it's, oh, how is Russia justified because of this? It's not just because of this, that, or that. You have to take into account the entire array of factors that led Russia to the decision that it took.
I'm all ears.
Just taking one thing in isolation will not allow you to see the big picture. It's not just that.
Well, Ukraine... so far what we've got from you is there was a revolution against the government that because it happens to be supported by
Because
Russia.
the people
you're in
of the
favor of.
Donbass are an indispensable piece of this puzzle, which you're ignoring. You're ignoring them.
Indispensable piece of what puzzle? What?
Of the puzzle for why there's a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Because when
It's
Ukraine
not really much
ceded,
of a puzzle. Russia wants
yes, there is.
Ukraine.
Because when Ukraine ceded from the USSR, it did so under the pretension that the rights of those people was going to be recognized. Those people did not want to be cut off from Russia. They don't want to be cut off from people they're indistinguishable
the country that
from.
starved them out.
Dude, but that's not how they view it, though. You can claim this stuff about 1930s all you want, but the fact is that
I'm sure you can find some
Sunday,
extremely
stop
disturbed.
pivoting. Sunday, stop pivoting. The fact
am I
is,
pivoting from?
It's simpler than this. The fact is, at the time of the Soviet Union's dissolution, Ukraine and Russia were part of the same state. The people in the Donbass and the Russian people were not especially different from each other. They were
Who
part
cares?
of
We're not we're not that
Hold on,
different
hold on,
from
let me
Americans
finish,
or
let me
Britons.
finish,
That
let me
doesn't give
finish.
America or Britain
Hold on.
license to invade our territory.
What? Dude, shut up for a fucking second. Just shut the fuck up and let me talk. You just interject sounding stupid because you don't even know what point I'm trying to make. In 1991, at the time of the Soviet Union's dissolution,
You should drink some water.
the people in the Donbass, okay, and people in Russia were not separated from each other. I'm not saying they were fucking similar. I'm saying they literally were part of the same polity, same civilization.
Polity and civilization aren't the same thing. A civilization isn't a polity. A civilization is a cluster.
That's
of
why
cultural
I didn't
similarities.
say where they were the
At
same. What is,
best.
dude?
You said
Dude,
polity.
you know what?
Polity
You know what?
assumes a bounded political community. That's
Okay, I
what
said
that term is
polity.
standing for.
I said they were part of the same polity and civilization.
Yes,
What is
indeed.
wrong with that, Sunday?
A civilization is not a polity. A polity is a general term for trying to talk about a political community when we're talking about a long expanse of time where the constitution of political forms has changed radically between them. I actually think that's a problematic term that I wouldn't really necessarily advocate using.
Would you regard
Um,
yourself as a
but-
midwit?
As a what, pardon?
Midwit. You're just arrogant. You're not
As a
actually
midwit?
smart. Yeah, you're not. You're not
Depends on
actually
the day.
smart. You're just arrogant. When did I make the equivalence between polity and civilization? Didn't I
When you
mention
said it
them-
was a polity and a civilization and you refer to the same thing.
So,
by hook.
okay, you know what? This is interesting. So if I say Sunday is a man, I
Yes.
don't know if you are, but let's just say you are. I don't know how you identify. Sunday is a
I am.
man.
Thank you.
Sunday
Very
is a
progressive of you.
man who, wears an orange shirt. Does that mean there's an equivalence between men who wear orange and people who wear orange shirts? Why are you justified?
Well, actually, what your the analogy would be, Sunday is a mammal and
No, it wouldn't.
a
No, it wouldn't.
and
There's-
an ecosystem, right?
No, it wouldn't.
Which would both
it
be
wouldn't
true,
be that. No,
actually,
it wouldn't
but-
be that. If I say a polity and a
Well,
civilization,
no, because this is actually really important because when we're talking about a civilization, it's in the word. Civilization is not just a noun; it's also a process, right? You can have a process of civilization.
Dude, I don't know if this is just because you're drunk, but this is a baffling level.
I'm
of
sobering up a little bit.
For
actually.
you to fucking interrupt me to say something so wrong, if I say
that's actually not wrong. That's correct.
If I say-
civilization
now
initially in the
people-
terms
I want
usage refers to
okay, this person
a
is mentally
process
ill. Dude,
of
this person is
acculturation and
mentally ill.
education.
This person is mentally ill. I'm gonna fucking point on Microsoft Paint right now to allow people to visualize how fucking stupid this.
You should scream
Haas-
louder. You're gonna
Haas-
make it more
okay.
apparent which of us is mentally ill.
Everyone will see. Haas says
I believe you.
polity and civilization.
Uh-huh.
Sunday claims Haas says polity equals civilization.
No.
How
You
does
say
that
polity
make
and
sense?
civilization by reference to the same thing. That means that you're referring to the same thing as both polity and civilization, but that's not correct.
No, I'm not. I'm referring to the fact that they were part
You
of...
referred to Russia as a polity and a
Shut
civilization.
up for 2
no?
seconds. Shut up
But
for
is
2
that
seconds.
incorrect though?
Dude,
Were
shut
you not
up
referring
for
to
2
Russia
seconds.
as a polity?
No, I was
No,
referring
just
to the polity.
simply yes or no.
I was
No, hang
referring...
on. Slow
Shut
down.
the fuck
Calm
up
down.
for 2 seconds. Why
Calm
are you
down.
scared to hear me?
I'm not. Why are you scared to hear me?
I was referring to the Soviet Union as a polity, which it is a shared
And a
polity.
civilization. A
No,
polity and a civilization.
Not
yes.
even necessarily even if I did, yes, but I was specifically referring to the fact that they were
So the Soviet Union is a polity and a civilization.
Sure, why not?
That's what we're running with. Well, I can tell you exactly why not, because a polity and civilization are not the same thing.
They don't
the
have
Soviet
to be the
Union
same
is
thing.
not a civilization. The Soviet Union is only a polity, and a polity at a very precise level of analysis.
So you think a polity cannot also be a civilization?
I do not think a polity can also be a civilization, no.
Why not?
For the same reason that a cancer can't also be an organism. We're talking about a cluster of cultural similarities that group different communities together that can nonetheless have their own histories, have their own lineages, go to war with one another. These are not the same kinds of things.
Actually, yes, gunpowder empires encompass that definition of polities which are both civilizations. But regardless...
What?
Yeah.
No, slow down. What do you mean by that? Explain.
The post-Mongol gunpowder empires were extremely diverse in terms of the various peoples they encompassed. They were civilizations that were encompassed more or less by one sovereign. Yes, they were.
Well, that's multiple civilizations. That's not a civilization and a polity.
Yeah, it's one civilization.
That would be one polity that happens to have hegemonic rule over multiple civilizations if we accept those terms.
No, it's not.
That would not be a civilization and a polity.
Civilization is based on a relationship between state and civil society, and civil society.
No, it's really not though.
Yes,
like the notion of because the notion of a civilization is projected far beyond state boundaries. If you read any of the people who actually deploy civilization in their theories, going back to like Spengler, Toynbee, etc., back to the earliest usage of the term, it doesn't refer to states. It refers to common features between states that makes them particularly amenable to each other.
If you want to render this conversation intelligible to viewers by cutting me off after two things, kind of sounds like you're scared to hear me make any argument at all.
Do I sound scared to you? Like, does something about my tone sound like I'm
every time I talk,
fear?
you can't help but open your fucking mouth and sound like a
Well, that's why
idiot.
I wanted us to talk in front of a moderator. Unfortunately,
Sunday,
since we're talking unmoderated, this is the game.
Since I let you talk, and I actually want to hear what you have to say so I can destroy you, you should be confident enough to hear me talk so you can dismantle what I'm saying, okay? Because I let you talk because I want to know exactly what I'm going to dismantle. Anyway,
I don't feel particularly destroyed or like you're following what I'm saying.
I don't want to get into a prolonged... You're wrong about what civilizations are, by the way. They do imply both a relationship between state...
I have your chat on. I know you're just reading your chat. You don't know what you're talking about.
Now you're just intentionally trying to fucking piss me off. That's fine. I know, yeah, you're just trying to troll at this point. See, you're resorting to trolling, which means...
I'm not trolling. I'm watching your stream and your chat as we speak, and I know that when you interject suddenly with a correction, you have no idea what you're talking about. Somebody has inserted something, and you're grasping for that, like a rock in a storm.
I'm looking through my chat right now. Where is the insertion? I'm looking at my chat now.
As farther back. I'm not looking.
Can you please name the user I got it from? And what did I get exactly?
Oh my god.
So you're not trolling right now when you're accusing me of getting this from my chat?
You're 100% getting this from your chat. So.
And you're not... Can you commit, based on your honor, that you're not trolling when you claim that?
What's that? Say again?
Will you commit your integrity to the claim that my argument is from my chat right now?
I think it's from your chat or from your Discord.
Okay, so... Anyway, let's focus on the actual substance of contention. You're wrong about what civilizations are.
I'm actually not.
Yes, you are. You're wrong about that.
No, I'm not.
Well, you're not willing to hear why you're wrong, Sunday. So I guess you, in your own little
why don't you indulge me very quickly and tell me what source you're actually getting your understanding of civilization from?
I don't need a specific source. I can try and give my go at describing what civilization is, and I don't need to draw from a source. I can just try and give a proper definition, if you will, of a civilization on my own terms, right? But anyway...
hang on, I don't care about your own terms. What Haas makes up off the cuff is not interesting.
Do you think civilization is like an empirical object that only that has to be like verified?
No, I think civilization is a fraught term. However, in its historical usage, it does not refer specifically. Actually, no, it specifically does not refer to a particular state. It is deployed specifically to talk about continuities between different states. Hellenic civilization does not refer to any particular state. It refers to Athens. It refers to Rome. It refers
Okay.
to a host
A
of
given-
different
a
states
given
that went
country-
to war
a
with
given-
each
a
other
given-
and identified radically differently.
Okay, again. You know, the reason you're wrong about that is because Hellenic civilization could not be given its full story without Alexander's conquests, which he temporarily conquered.
Hellenic
into one-
civilization precedes Alexander's conquest.
I know,
what you're talking about.
but the idea would be basically that is still anticipating a more universal state, right? But anyway,
What?
listen. Yeah.
Well, what are you talking about? Universal state? Civilization does not entail a universal state.
A civilization can indeed anticipate a universal polity encompassing the civilization.
If what you mean is a civilization can exist before the existence of a state with universal aspirations, sure, but that bears nothing whatsoever on the definition of civilization as opposed to state.
Yeah, it does, because you're giving an incomplete picture of Hellenic civilization, for example, when you're not taking into account how it's giving rise to this impetus for a shared unified polity. But anyway, here's the problem, President.
But it doesn't though. First of all,
Well, that's what
because
happened.
Alexander the Great was a Macedonian. Secondly,
What does that matter? Hellenism, the historical period of Hellenism, followed his conquests as we know it. Hellenic civilization.
no, that was the end. That was the end of the Hellenic style politeia
No, it's
being
not,
like a
dude.
meaningful category
Okay, you're not
of
familiar
polity
with
in the
you're not
ancient
familiar
world.
with historiography. The Hellenic period ends with Mark Antony at the Battle of Actium or Actum. I forgot to pronounce it. When
What?
he's fighting with Hellenism, the era of Hellenism.
Okay, you're talking about like an arbitrary system of periodization. You're not talking about a civilization.
But the
Those are different things.
periodization is what's actually, you just said cite your sources. Well, that's the most conventional way of citing history.
No. Periodization and civilizational descriptions are not the same thing. Periodization has to
Okay.
do with like
Sunday.
Civilizations
Sunday.
are a spatial characterization.
Okay, sure, a spatial characterization. In any case, you're giving an incomplete picture of a given civilization if you're not including the way in which that civilization gives rise. Saying that Alexander was a Macedonian, what? So that's the end of Hellenic civilization? Under what criterion?
What?
Who would agree with you that Hellenic civilization is coming to its end following Alexander's conquests?
I didn't say Hellenic civilization came to its end under Alexander's conquest. The politeia, the polis, became an irrelevant
So was Hellenic
or
civilization
subordinated form after the conquests of Alexander, because now you had empires hegemonically asserting their rights over individual communities. But the civilizations
But that
remain
empire,
the same.
you don't think that empire was the culmination of Greek history?
No, he's a Macedonian.
Well, that's not how Alexander himself articulates it. Alexander himself is articulating
Yes,
this.
he's the son of Philip. He's a Macedonian, like Aristotle.
Okay,
He's a foreigner.
but he's a foreigner who's a part of Greek civilization.
No, he's part of a different place. Different like everything.
According to President Sunday, Alexander was not part of Greek civilization and he had nothing to do with Greeks. Okay, that's fine. That's a new contribution to history from President Sunday.
He conquered them.
Okay, so Alexander came from completely outside of the Greek sphere, the sphere of Greek civilization.
No, he was in the territory of Greece, but he wasn't the same. He wasn't from the same type of place as Athens or Sparta or whatever. That's why you don't talk about them when you're talking, for example, about the Peloponnesian War or the war with the Persians or whatever.
Was it not Alexander who completed that war with the Persians?
No, that's a different war with the Persians.
No, there was
different war.
multiple wars with the Persians, and the
Yeah,
final
but
one,
that's a different war with
the
with
final.
frankly
Okay,
different
you're right. I
Persians,
got a
actually.
donation saying you're changing the subject, and you are. So, can you actually give me 20 seconds of non-interrupted
Stop letting
speech?
this guy change the
Or do you have
subject
to,
by nitpicking you into a million.
You need to impulsively keep responding.
Sure, 20 seconds now.
Okay, sure. So, you're wrong about the nature of what civilization is. You're completely wrong about that. But even if you were right, the point stands that me saying polity and civilization in no way implies that they're the same thing. You could very well have a shared civilizational sphere that is also happen to be encompassed by the same polity in terms of territory. Saying that they're encompassed by the same polity and civilization in no way implies any kind of equivalence. There could be a vague Russian civilization that's shared between Ukraine and Russia. You say that being under the same polity precludes the possibility of a shared civilization. That's an arbitrary claim. It's a completely
Being part of the
meaningless
same
claim.
civilization doesn't give rights to one particular polity within that civilization to assert itself
Who's
over
talking about rights?
hegemonically.
Who said rights? Where did that come from? Did you pull it out of your hat Sunday? Who the fuck said rights? Who said that? All I
I mean,
said.
you were talking
Okay,
about a universal
okay.
state
So
earlier. I thought
first,
you
this
understood.
is what I said.
I thought you understood that
So
language.
let's go back to the beginning.
When you're talking about
On
when
the
you're
eve-
talking
on
about
the
when
eve
you're
of
talking
the
about
dissolution-
when you're talking about when you're talking about a state using militaristic force
No, we're not talking
to
about that yet. Again,
forcibly alter the
stop being
composition
so
of another
addicted to
state.
pornography. Stop.
One of
being-
the ways in
Dude,
which you
you're
can
a porn
describe
addict.
that is
You're a
that
fucking
state
porn
asserting
addict.
its rights
Dude,
over the
dude,
other
you're a-
state.
you're a
That's what
porn-
that means.
You're a porn addict, okay? You need to hold your horses. We're not here in 2022 yet. We're here in 1991. And as of 1991, the people of Eastern Ukraine and Russia are not considered a different people, right? They are Russians living in Ukraine because there's an open border there. They're part of the same Soviet polity, and they're also part of the same civilization. I'm going to qualify that in a way that I hope isn't controversial. These are people who are marrying each other. These are people who are seamlessly interacting with each other. They're not considered different, right? They're not separated from each other on any level of culture, of any level of language. They are not a different people, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so that's what I said. And then you went on this whole tangent about polities and civilizations are the same. It's irrelevant, okay?
Well, it's not. You deployed those terms specifically to justify once again the incursion of Russia.
No,
into
we're
Ukraine.
not there yet, but we're not there yet. No, we're there when we have to talk about how the ability for these people in Eastern Ukraine to be part of a separate Ukrainian state requires, according to them, according to the Ukrainian constitution, their ability to both participate in the political system and for their participation to be recognized formally.
Where's this? Hang on. Where is this?
In the Ukrainian constitution that entitles everyone a right to vote.
Show me.
In the Ukrainian constitution after 1991, you're questioning whether this constitution entails the democratic rights of the Ukrainian people?
No. I'm questioning whether or not by reference to the Constitution itself, you can actually pinpoint an argument for why the Donbass is
Because they
well,
voted.
more accurately for why Russia is justified
it's very simple.
in
It's simple.
fomenting
They
a
voted
civil war within
because
the
they
Donbass.
voted for Poroshenko and he was overthrown in a way that didn't reflect their political will.
Well, if Poroshenko once again was firing on his people and was in office
Show me in the Ukrainian constitution where that matters, Sunday. Show me.
The Ukrainian constitution is not just a piece of paper, it is also a reference to the constitution of the community itself.
And
When we say constitution, we are not simply
Well,
referring
there's
to a
clearly
piece of paper
but the
that
problem is that there's
licenses
a
any
disagreement
action
between the
whatsoever.
community. Well,
We
there's a
are talking
disagreement.
about
I'm gonna
we
start
are
interrupting
talking
you now,
about
dude. There's
we
a
are
disagreement.
talking about we are talking about the composition. We are talking about the composition
of community.
We are talking about the composition of the community in a real sense.
We are talking about the difference of
And if the
community.
executive
We are talking about the
authority
difference
is
of community
opening
between the
fire
people
on
in
the
Eastern
people
Ukraine and the
trying to
people
keep
of
himself in
the
power,
Western Ukraine. We are talking about the fact that when there are fundamental differences between
then a
the various
revolution against him, according to the
when there are fundamental
classical
differences
liberal theory, Bonnie, is perfectly justified.
when there are essential fundamental
Why don't you
differences
stop, breathe for a second, think about what you're going to say.
when there are fundamental differences between the various peoples comprising the Ukraine, the only mechanism that guarantees some kind of shared political community is a formal constitution. There's no vague general feeling of agreement among the community of people in the Eastern
That's
Ukraine
silly. A political
that the
constitution is not
overthrow
an orgy. It is not based upon people having some shared feeling.
There
with
is.
the people
It's
who are
not a
next to
shared
them.
feeling. It's a shared formal document that asserts the rights of everyone in Ukraine. So if people in Western Ukraine
Sure.
have
So
a
if
vague
the
feeling of not liking,
if the person who is elected to office then abuses deficiencies within the writ of the law to tyrannically assert himself over the people's will, it's completely appropriate for
there
that
has
people
to be
to
which
engage in
people?
revolutionary
Which-
action against
which
him.
people? Which people? Not the people in Eastern Ukraine. So how do you establish a
Well,
general unified Ukrainian people?
probably at least
How
some
do-
of the people,
Hold on.
probably at least some of the
So-
people
so-
in
so
Eastern
Sunday,
Ukraine.
how do
But
you
you
then-
regard any
okay,
revolutionary action
how-
as being
Sunday,
actions of criminals.
how do you fucking
whose persecution
establish?
is entirely
How do you
justified.
establish the generality of the Ukrainian people outside of that fucking constitution? Then how do you
Say
do
that
it?
again a little bit louder. I couldn't quite hear you.
How do you establish the generality of the people of Ukraine?
It's still not coming through. You gotta go.
How do
bring it up
you
a little bit.
establish the generality and the
Is somebody
unity of the
squeezing your
people of
balls or
Ukraine?
something? Like
How
you're
do you
squeaking. Like, come
establish?
on.
How do you establish the generality and the unity of the people of Ukraine? Then
How do you establish the generality and the unity of the people of Ukraine? Then
yes,
It's not by characterizing any part that dissents against the tyranny of somebody who wants to stay in office to
okay.
perpetuity.
Sunday.
By calling them rioters and criminals.
Russian-speaking Ukrainians have a different interest than Western-speaking Ukrainians. The only
Western
reason
isn't a language, Haz.
doesn't matter.
It does matter. What the fuck does that mean? Western versus Russian-speaking Ukrainians.
Western Ukrainians, who are indeed different from Russian-speaking Ukrainians in the East, okay? They have different interests in this case. One wants to be closer to Russia, one wants to be closer to Europe. The only reason why these
So what?
The only reason why these Russian-speaking Ukrainians are not taking up arms and seceding is because they're following the law. And the same law which is established in the Ukrainian constitution. You claiming that Poroshenko beating protesters justifies his overthrow is irrelevant to the point, because it's not justified to the people who elected him.
Well, it does, because you're making specific recourse to a democratic principle to justify, once again, the incursion of a foreign power into Ukraine's territory.
Those people who are ass hurt about Poroshenko can live in their own state. They can't impose their will on the people of Eastern Ukraine who disagree with their sentiment.
Yeah, they can. Just like Russia can impose.
No, they can't. Well, they failed. That's the thing, Sunday. They fucking failed. They failed in doing that. That's why Russia.
Just to be
Russia's
clear,
there right now.
even running with your
you have the audacity
logic,
to make an argument for might is right, and then bitch at me for supporting Russia. I'm unjust for supporting Russia.
Even running, you're on drugs. That's not healthy.
Are you on fucking drugs, dude?
Even running with your logic. That would entail that Russia invades and then stops at the Donbass, did it?
Russia never claimed to have any ambitions, quote unquote, for Ukraine.
Are you a simpleton? Do you believe whatever somebody?
Dude, why'd you cut me off?
Maybe
I was gonna say maybe there was a vital piece of my argument you just stopped everyone from hearing right now. Maybe that's the reason.
Maybe
there's a vital thing I was about to say. Maybe you
have some secret answer to.
No, maybe I didn't finish what I was going to say, which was Russia operating outside of the Donbass was defensive because Ukraine's military is getting replenished and coming from outside of the Donbass. So, yes, it's mainly defensive.
Do you think American colonialism in the Middle East is defensive?
I'm going to simplify this for you. Russia wants to defend the Donbass, and that's its main goal. Ukraine is coming.
It's defending a territory that only exists as a result of its incursion.
Did Churchill just want to conquer Germany?
It is defending a front that it is established in the act of an invasion.
I'm sorry, dude. D-Day was unjustified because the Western Allies have no right to conquer and colonize Germany. It's not like they actually just wanted to remove the German aggressors that were coming from Germany and attacking them. No, that just means they have territorial.
What if they did though? What if they did though?
Dude, do you think America had territorial claims?
No. Yeah, well, just answer that question. What if they did?
What if who did?
What if the Americans really were just these selfless martyrs who just wanted to stop the Holocaust? What if they did?
What? The Americans didn't have territorial claims to Germany, is my point.
I know.
So what are you proposing? What counterfactual are you proposing?
Well, first of all, Germany invaded neighboring territories first. America was coming in defense of its allies.
Okay, so America can attack Germany and German soil without having territorial claims to Germany, right?
If Germany is attacking its allies and going beyond its borders to
well, Western Ukraine is going beyond its borders, according to Russia, and attacking the Donbass. So there you go.
Okay, so if the Nazis just decided to claim that Belgium by rights belonged to Germany, that would be sufficient for you to support the German invasion of Belgium.
Do the people of Belgium who are German now, apparently, and speak German and are Germans and identify as Germans agree with this sentiment?
Well, once they excise all of the gays and the Jews, I imagine there would be quite a consensus on that.
So you're now denying the right to the self-determination of the Belgian nation, claiming they have no such aspiration. That's interesting. But
You're very stupid, Haas.
Okay.
Are we talking
no,
on the 20th?
I'm very stupid. Are
Very.
the people
Are we talking on the
of are the
20th?
people of Belgium who are on their own accord mainly seceding from some higher power, constantly getting shelled and attacked all the time?
By Germany, they were.
Not by Germany, by France, let's say. Let's say Belgium is actually a German-speaking people, and they wanted to leave France and join Germany, and France is constantly attacking them, and Germany is trying to negotiate a peace in the form of the Minsk agreements, which France keeps fucking violating, and there's no end to the conflict, and a hostile coalition of people like NATO, for example, is using it as a pretext
That's first of all incorrect. As far as I am aware, the Minsk agreements were simply never honored, and a conflict that was initiated by Russia simply continued.
Why weren't the Minsk agreements
slightly while they were being agreed
why
upon?
weren't the Minsk agreements honored?
Because Russia kept
really?
an invading
Then
force
why did
kept firing at
Ukrainian- why did
Ukrainians,
the Ukrainian,
and Ukrainians kept firing at
why did-
Russians.
why did-
but here's the crucial point:
Why did
within Ukraine's borders.
Let's evaluate the facts, Sunday. Why did the Ukrainian government ministers, the prominent, I forgot the exact one, in as early as January of 2022, claim that they never wanted to sign Minsk in the first place, and they were forced to at gunpoint?
Because probably they didn't want to sign an agreement where they would stop firing on an invading force within their territory.
Don't blame Russia.
I am blaming Russia. They were invading Ukraine.
Shut up for
Why
a
the
second.
fuck?
No,
Why
they
the
weren't.
fuck would Ukraine sign an agreement to stop firing back on an
Sunday,
invading
but
force?
you just said Minsk was never honored because of Russia, and that's not true. Minsk was never
No.
honored.
Minsk was predicated on a Russian invasion. It just really wasn't honored, period.
Sunday. So then just say you don't believe in the validity of Minsk then. Don't say Minsk, the peace process of Minsk, which Ukraine
I never
signed.
said I believed in whatever the fuck the validity of
You
Minsk
said it
means.
wasn't honored by Russia. That's a lie.
That doesn't mean I believe in its validity. It's kind of the opposite.
It was honored by Russia. It was honored by Russia. It was Ukraine.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. All the sources show that both were firing upon themselves, and moreover, it wouldn't matter because once again, even if Russia, even if Russia did honor it, they would be honoring it while violating Ukrainian sovereign territory.
Here's why it does matter, Sunday. It does matter because not only, and this is not only what I'm going to say, Ukraine was party to that, but it does matter because Ukraine has.
Hang on, no, slow down. You got to be particular. Party to what?
I said not only, so let me finish it first.
No, but you weren't making sense. You were referencing a thing that you haven't actually
making
pointed
sense.
to yet.
I'll explain it after I get my second point because
explain it first and then say the point.
This is the point I care about, and then I'll explain what I just said.
Okay, but I don't care about your point. So tell me that thing first.
This is my
what were you
actual
referring
point.
to?
I said not only.
I'm happy for you, but
so ignore
tell me the
it for now. Not only was Ukraine a signatory, to Minsk II, a party to the
an agreement with an invading power. Yes.
You're constituting the Crimea as an invasion. Shut the fuck up. Second of all,
yes, I'm constituting the rolling in of tanks into Crimea, which was not in Russia's territory,
but you just
as an invasion.
Hold on. But the problem here, Sunday, the problem is that Ukraine expressly claimed it had no intention of honoring Minsk. Why would Russia dishonor the Minsk agreements?
Why is Ukraine obligated to honor Minsk? Ukraine is being invaded.
Then say they don't want Minsk. That's fine. Don't say Russia was the one dishonoring the agreement because they weren't.
I said they both were. I said
Russia
it never
didn't do that.
No, I said Minsk was never honored by either. No, I said Minsk was never honored by either side, and the data actually shows this.
Okay, if Russia's the only one who wants Minsk, what reason does Russia fucking have to violate the Minsk agreements? Tell me that.
Because if Ukraine honors Minsk and Russia violates Minsk, then its invasion into Ukraine is further abetted because Ukraine has let its guard down.
What? Hold on. Russia wants Minsk.
What is complicated about this?
Russia wants Minsk.
Let's play this out. Let's play this out for a second.
Yeah.
So if you're invading a country that is fighting back against you pretty effectively, would you not want them to stop for a brief period, to stop firing back, and to give you a minute to regroup
what
and then push forward
effective
again?
fighting was Ukraine doing against Russia from the period of 2014 to early 2022, just before the actual SMO?
The particulars evade me, but they must have been doing something right because they've managed to
weren't.
fight off a much larger force for a very long time.
They weren't. There was a lot of heavy bloodshed going on, and it was just chaos. There was
yet Ukraine still stands. This invasion has been.
I can't
taking
fathom
place.
how stupid what you just said was.
This invasion.
What do you
this
mean
invasion
Ukraine
has
still
been going
stands?
on since This invasion has been going on since 2014.
Okay, 2022. There's an SMO, February 2022. Minsk. You're just not educated. Apparently, the Minsk agreements are preceding the SMO. I hope you know that the SMO didn't come from a month ago. Sorry, the Minsk agreements didn't come from a month ago. The Minsk agreements stem from the Ukrainian civil war, and it was mediated by Russia because Russia wanted peace between the Donbass regions and Ukraine. They wanted a tentative agreement in which Ukraine would stop fighting with people in Donbass, and they would just leave each other alone, according to the Minsk agreements.
No, because the people who were fighting in Donbass were also Russian soldiers.
Even if there was a Russian special operation, special forces there, the allegation.
No, Hawes,
doesn't matter.
that makes it the front. That makes it the front in an invasion. That's not a civil war anymore.
Nope.
That's a civil war being used as a human meat
true.
shield
Not true.
to defend an invasion.
You may not be that well read up on the Donetsk People's Republics and Lugansk People's Republics.
I'm not, and yet I seem to be doing fine. It's a little bit disturbing, actually.
I know people who've lived there, many people, okay?
Well, then may God have mercy on your soul. I'll talk to you on the 20th.
Yeah. Stop bitching out, dude. No, let's finish this. He ran away like a... On YouTube, not on Rumble. I can't believe this pussy. I can't believe this fucking pussy. He fucking ran away, okay? The people in the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics don't need Russian soldiers to come as the motivation for them to fight. Those are people, rank and file, people from the Donbass fighting on the front lines. If they're getting some hidden assistance by the Russian special forces, I've heard that allegation. It's never really been substantiated from what I've seen, but maybe there's some truth to it. I don't know. In the main, the fighting is being done by people from the Donbass, easily. Fucking bitch, ran away. What a fucking pussy.